Hello there, and welcome to The Night Owl, a show that we do twice a week where we discuss all the latest in pop culture, news and reviews, entertainment news, just general topics of the day, and gaming news. And as usual, I have with me my co host, Professor R2. How's it going, Professor?
Doing well. Just got home from traveling to see the family for Christmas, and yeah, glad to be back. Hello, everyone out there, night owls. It's good to see you.
Good to see everybody here. And of course, people say that I don't introduce myself enough. I'm Price of Reason. Uh, so just throwing that out there in case you're new to the channel. Of course,
Squid puppet, whatever whatever you want to call
that's actually I've been called worse than that. Uh, we have
And recently,
and recently
after some of your reviews of Mufasa, people were very upset with you.
there were some people. The most people that got upset were actually Wicked. Wicked really caused a
Yes,
lot of
they did
people.
not like Wicked. Your
No,
review of
no, I have a
Wicked,
lot
yeah.
of people really angry about that review. The Mufasa one, there's some angry people. You know, some of them called me an istinophobe, which I mean, what do you want? They're lions. I don't
Mhm.
understand how I can be an istinophobe for not liking a movie about lions, but it is what it is. Kivo 1961 is happy to see you back, Professor.
Yes, and I'm happy to see you, Kivo.
Says the professor returns. So that is a thing.
Now, to be fair, I wasn't gone all on of Tuesday. I did
A-
pop in there at the end, but
And Backyard
yeah,
TARDIS friend of the channel says
yes.
hello there.
Hey,
Backyard
Becky too.
TARDIS, by the way, Backyard TARDIS, I thought you said you were doing something with your family, but if you feel like joining us for our conversation, you're definitely welcome to.
Most certainly.
Backyard TARDIS, I don't know if you sometimes watch the Quantum Leap stream, but he's one of the panelists on that one, or one of my
Yes,
co-hosts on that one, and super nice guy, really into science fiction. Have great conversations with the guy. So
and clearly a fan of real Doctor Who.
fan of real Doctor Who, not the phony one. And
Hmm.
he says Disney PR been trying to promote Mufasa as a win over Sonic by comparing worldwide box office to Sonic's 3's domestic.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been a lot of strange things going on, and that's actually part of the conversation that we're going to be having here.
Yeah.
You know, during the first weekend, it was an undeniable crushing, where Sonic just crushed uh, Mufasa. I think that it had like 65 million, and whereas Mufasa and domestic had about 35 million.
Yeah, it was nearly
Significant.
double.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically it almost doubled its box office receipt, which is considered a big deal. The only thing that's weird, and I still don't get why they did this, they didn't release Sonic worldwide the same day that Mufasa released worldwide. They only released it in the US, whereas they're waiting a bit and then releasing it worldwide.
Yeah, I think
And that's really
worldwide was last night. I think
worldwide was
worldwide
last night.
was either Christmas Day or Christmas Eve.
And now it's going to be interesting to see where it really does go, because Disney has really been trying to use the fact that it wasn't a worldwide wide release for Sonic to sort of manipulate the numbers in a way that they're telling people, "Hey, we have the number one movie in the world." And the thing is that the fact that Sonic is actually only playing in the US and it crushed it here, and it's trying to make it seem like it has the number one in the world, it's a bit misleading. At least I know that on Twitter they got community noted where people
Yep.
were clarifying this, because the way they were presenting it was sort of a misrepresentation of the actual facts. But I will say, I guess, you know, quote unquote, from a certain point of view, you could say that yeah, I mean, if you take all the tickets that were sold in the US and worldwide and connect them together, and then take all the tickets that were sold in for Sonic during that time, which were only in the US, you could make the argument that at that point they sold more worldwide. But yeah, I mean, it's a very sneaky argument, but it is an argument, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's actually it's fascinating that the international box office is actually as strong for Mufasa as it has been. The international box office is uh, over double of their domestic box office, which is really interesting. Like, I guess some movies just translate well for international audiences. There's a lot that don't, but this one seems to have done really well internationally. But we'll see how that lasts past past the first weekend.
Yeah, yeah, it's I think that definitely things are going to get interesting now. I personally, even in my review, I said that I actually think that moving forward, it's still going to get parents, especially during the holiday season. I said this in my review that as much as I didn't like Mufasa, the Lion King is a brand name. Now, a lot of parents in this holiday season, they're looking for stuff to do with their kids, and they see and they think to themselves, I can just sit here in the theater. I have small children. They can look at some lions singing and dancing. What's the worst that can happen? And I think that the brand of the Lion King is strong enough to pull some parents in to do that. That's how it's made money until now, and it's gonna make more money. I don't think it's gonna be making the type of money that even the first Lion King live action made, because that was like 1.5 billion dollars or something. I don't see that returning in that way. But I also wouldn't underestimate them. They're capable of suckering in a lot of parents that really don't know any better. I mean, even if it's not a good movie, uh, do you get what I'm trying to say?
No, absolutely. It's a lot of parents are going to look for shortcuts when it comes to picking out something for the kids, right? You know, they're not going to take a lot of time to think about which of these movies is going to be the winner as far as they're concerned. They're just looking for what they think the kids are going to enjoy, and they're going to say, "Oh, look, Lion King. That one should be fine, right?" Uh, just
Well, I
good.
mean, one of the issues that I have, and this is why I talk about this kind of stuff, and people think I'm crazy, and I've been saying this for years, is most parents are not like I'm saying most parents or most moviegoers, I would categorize them as somewhat normies.
Yeah.
Uh, these past few days, I happened to meet with some people that I haven't seen in a while that have kids, and I was telling them about a lot of stuff about this Disney stuff, and they listened with great interest. When I was saying my thoughts about it, they started thinking about it and thinking, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe there's something to what you're saying. There is some messaging there. But in the day to day, they need to take their kid to some movie. It says some Disney thing. I was telling them about Wish. They took their kid to see Wish. I was and I was telling them about like what I thought about Lion King. Lion King was a movie they thought of taking their kid to see. I guess what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say is that once I was explaining it to them and they kind of understood what I was saying, I could tell that it interested them. But some people, it just goes over their head. Even these parents, they don't even care. They don't know what's in. They're not thinking about these messages. This is where Disney has that kind of edge, where they sucker people into bringing their kids into these kind of things, and they shove the same propaganda in there over and over again.
Mm. Yeah.
I,
Yeah, they do.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that the people that I was talking to, they weren't necessarily like these like extreme progressive left people. I think that they were just kind of I'd categorize them as sort of middle of the road people that just are looking to take their kid to see some movie, that maybe has some animated creatures and stuff. do,
Yeah,
do
yeah,
you get what I mean?
exactly.
Like,
No, yeah.
and that's the big win for Disney, that really people like you and I are sitting around sounding the alarm, whereas meanwhile, a lot of people, it just went over their head. This has been bothering me for years. It started with Star Wars and those kind of. I think Star Wars was really a game changer, and it really ushered in that era of taking everything and putting in that propaganda over and over again. And we've been seeing it just over and over again for the past 7 years. And so many people until now, it just proved to me how so many people until now have not even realized it. And even this new Lion King, which I think does have these kind of annoying subliminal messages, I think most parents don't even notice them.
Yeah, they're just kind of expected. They're background noise, I think, on some level.
I mean,
But
the dead man says the parents today are Lion King fans. From this is
yeah.
exactly
Mhm.
what Disney is counting on. It's counting on the fact that people think still, maybe foolishly, that they're kind of the family friendly company. They're also hoping that some of these properties that have been around for a long time, the parents will say, "Okay, I know what this is. I can take my kid to this. I saw the Lion King. Oh, there's more Lion King. I saw the Lion King too. I like the Lion King," and that's what they're counting on. Uh, Even the parents that I was telling this to, and they said, our kid really likes, Disney stuff and whatever, and like they were listening to me, but at the same time, I mean, it didn't look like tomorrow they're going to cancel their Disney Plus subscription. It looks like their kid watches that stuff, and they were saying to me, "Listen, back in the day, it also had like messages and stuff." And I said, you know what? Whatever messages it had, it's not like what it's doing now. This kind of
No,
divisive ideologies and
no.
things that are being shoved in there now, that's not what it was back in the day. And I was trying my best to explain it. The fact that I even sort of had to try to explain it to people who were intelligent people only emphasized to me that Disney still have a stronghold on families, even with all the stuff that we say about them.
They do. They really do.
And then you saw that on Christmas Day, suddenly it said that, in the US, Mufasa actually made more money than Sonic. Now, there's something else, and this is an article that I think appeared in that Park Place, which was interesting. Let me try to find this.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because actually I called this last Sunday saying that Disney was going to be claiming they were the number one movie in the world because Sonic it didn't open everywhere on the same day. I was looking at some of the comments in the chat. Backyard TARDIS was saying he's currently watching Probe instead of current Doctor Who because that's the kind of Doctor Who fan he is. Yeah, I'm with you, Backyard Tortoise. I cannot watch current Doctor Who. I've gotten into some other some classic shows like Blake Seven and UFO, some shows that really were not big over here in the U.S. Watching then, and he also said that Sonic is much bigger in the UK than in the US. He'd be interested to see what the UK box office looks like, and yeah, that's absolutely true. Going back to the console wars of the 80s and 90s, Sega had a much bigger stronghold on the market over in the UK than they did here in the US. It was Nintendo primarily was in the lead during both 8 and 16-bit era, but the Genesis, or in UK the Mega Drive, was much bigger over in the UK. So yeah, there's a lot of Sonic fans over there. We'll have to wait and see what that box office looks like. Found what
Right.
you're looking for?
What'd you say?
I said you found what you're looking for.
Oh, didn't I share it?
Yes, I got it up there. I
Yes,
see
I
it.
found it.
Yeah.
So this article says that Disney bullies theaters, forcing Mufasa on more theaters than Sonic 3, even as the Hedgehog earns far more. Now, a lot of times what happens is when there's a movie that's a clear winner, you start seeing theaters giving the not winner a few less theaters, and actually the one that's winning more theaters. In this case, they didn't give Sonic more theaters. I think it opened with uh, I want to say somewhat significant amount less than Mufasa had. I think it had like 3,000 something. It had 4,000 something, meaning there was a difference between what Disney had and what the Sonic 3 movie had. And it's not like they gave them more theaters now. On the contrary, Disney just continues to push along. I don't know how that impacted that number for that Christmas day, but the
Yeah.
fact that there's more theaters showing Lion King, and they sort of are not, moving aside, and they're threatening the theaters and sort of bullying them, really interesting. Most studios wouldn't be able to pull that off.
Yep. It looks like then over the weekend, oh, this looks like the number hadn't changed. So Sonic is in 3,761 theaters, and Mufasa is in 4,100 theaters.
I mean, it's a
So
difference, and
yeah,
it's instead of giving them the theaters and saying, "Well, you're not the winner, you're getting less," there's giving Disney more theaters. It's
yeah,
very uncommon that the movie that's clobbering the other movie, with twice as much ticket sales, isn't getting more theaters versus the other one.
yeah.
This could only happen with the type of pressure that Disney is putting on them. The question is, do you think that that Christmas thing was sort of a fluke, or you think that this is now a new, what do you suspect is going to happen in coming weeks?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I haven't heard anybody who's excited about Mufasa. We have been, different group that we run in, but I haven't heard anybody who's particularly excited about Mufasa. I talked to some family over the weekend. Nobody, uh, some family didn't even know Mufasa was a film. They didn't even know it existed. But Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait for another weekend because I don't really know if there's excitement for Mufasa or not. I don't. Doesn't seem to me that there is. It doesn't seem to me like that's something that's got a lot of interest. If maybe it, again, maybe it was just something that maybe they thought would be more of a family movie than Sonic. Maybe Sonic would be more for teenagers, and Lion King would be more for kids. Maybe that's why it would be more of a movie that they would want to see around Christmas. Yeah, who knows? But it looks like even until the last couple of days, like Christmas Day, Sonic was still earning more per theater than Mufasa.
Well, Backyard TARDIS is saying something interesting. He says, when you think of a family Christmas movie for grandparents, Lion King is a bigger draw than Sonic. So I'm not surprised Mufasa did better over the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Uh, I can see that. I can see that. Uh, we have Marla Sharondoff saying forcing people to go see their movie and being sore losers about not being number one is not good practice. I agree with you, Marla. And we also have Vex Electronica that says Mufasa eats more
More ducks.
than a truck stop. uh, I don't know how to exactly explain this to people, but by the way, I thought you were going to bed, Vex. That's what you said. You said, or maybe you were washing your hair. No, you were washing your hair last week. Now I thought you were
Oh,
going to bed. And anyhow, in any case, people think I'm kidding. That's actually probably what she's doing. She was washing her hair, and now she's in bed. Uh,
unless
Sonic.
washing her hair is a euphemism for something that we haven't gotten yet.
Eraser says, "Can't lie. I didn't even realize Mufasa came out. You didn't realize I did on my main channel. I did a review. So you should check that out." And she says that it hasn't even gotten a full release. Sonic. True, we mentioned that. That'll be really interesting. That's going to be the real test. What happens when it goes international? How is the international audience going to react? How much legs is this Mufasa thing going to have? Personally, I really didn't like Mufasa, but I'll tell you this: as much as I thought it wasn't a good movie. I was sitting there, and there were some parents that brought their kids, and most of the parents that brought their kids, I don't even know if they cared about what was happening on screen. I think that it's really smaller kids. I think that the original Lion King, it appealed to a lot of people. You could have been older or younger or a teenager or a little kid, and somehow it was something that brought everybody together. It was that kind of movie. And I think that with this thing, it didn't feel that way. It felt like there were parents that may know what the brand is,
Hmm.
mainly just planted their kids in some chair and figured maybe my kid will look at this and there's some lions talking and whatever. So it didn't feel like everybody was so immersed in it. I saw some kids just kind of getting up out of their seat and walking around and whatever. But I thought
Yeah.
to myself, I'm not even kidding. I thought to myself, the parents here, they don't really care about what's being shown. They just need to bring their kids somewhere, plant them in some chair, show them some animated creatures doing random stuff, and that's good enough for them.
Yeah.
So it was
See,
very educational for me, though. You know what I mean? I saw it, and I'm like,
yeah.
okay, I get it. Disney can still pull in some kind of
Some
audience, even though
people.
it's not a good movie.
Yeah, yeah, they do still have some influence. Although we'll tell you, there's a lot of people that are quite wary of Disney as a company now. So they kind of have to make sure that it's okay before they're going to be taking their kids. And curiously, I was just looking at the international release dates because I had thought I had seen that it looked like most of the international releases were going to be on the 24th, but I was wrong. It looks like a handful of the international releases were either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Most of them are either today or tomorrow. So they're coming out for it in the
We'll
second
see.
weekend.
We'll
So we
know
will
a lot more.
definitely, yeah, by Sunday we'll know what those weekend numbers look like internationally. But I think it's going to do really well. I honestly, it's done very well, very impressively well here in the U.S. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes
I
for
mean,
Sonic over this weekend.
I am in a unique position because I've seen both movies, so I can say which one I thought was better. Hi, Adam Gray, by the way, and Vex Electronica confirmed that she is in bed, not washing her hair this time,
Hey,
but
we're
but
we're in bed with Vex.
in bed with Vex.
Hi, Vex.
Uh, so I've seen both movies. And I'll tell you this because Backyard Artist asked me to talk about how I felt about Sonic. Although I thought I did, but I'll give my thoughts briefly again. I thought that Sonic was a good, fun family movie. The story unfolds in a way that's satisfactory, and the beats are okay. Is it some kind of high concept fancy movie? It's not. But I think that whereas with The Lion King, as usual, I got that annoying Disney feeling that some weird propaganda is being pushed in there. With Sonic for 99 point something, 99% of it, I didn't feel that way. I felt that it just wanted to tell its story. It's meant to be, a fun movie. There's things that are amusing, even if you're older, that you may find amusing there. If you like the game growing up, also there's stuff for you there. It's sort of this kind of fun, uh, not serious, fun, family friendly movie for all ages that people can watch. At the same time, I will say this, and I think that I agree here because I had some conversations with the Backyard TARDIS on this. Is that it feels like in this movie, Jim Carrey. I suspect there's certainly a reason why I suspect this, but it could be that he won't return anymore to the franchise. Now, I would never say never because I think that initially he didn't intend to return, and he liked playing this role so much, and
Hmm.
he's enjoying doing it so much, and they're paying him a lot, and he's also not 20, so he came back a few times. The way this movie unfolded and ended and all that stuff, I tend to think that he may not be back. And another reason for it is also because it seems like in this movie they just let him do whatever he wants. He plays two characters. They focus on them a lot. And one might argue maybe too much. The character of James Martin plays, which I like, he actually is really sidelined, and so is his wife. I mean, I didn't mind him and his wife, but they're really sidelined. Those other things, the brother and the law and whatever it is, you barely see them. It really feels like all these actors, the whole cast sort of took a back seat. This feels like the Jim Carrey show in the sense that he is very, very dominant with his humor. It has a very kind of old school Ace Ventura vibe. And I could see why some people would say, you know what, maybe this is a bit too much. But I actually didn't mind it. I could see why somebody would claim that maybe it was a heavy dose of Jim Carrey. At the same time, if this is his final movie, I think it's fair enough. Let the guy do his thing. He's Jim Carrey. This is the thing that he knows how to do. And overall, I did rather enjoy it still. I think that the characters with Sonic, with Knuckles, with Tail, like what they did. Shadow was okay. I think some people are more excited about Shadow than I am, but I think that it was at least okay. And yeah, it didn't leave me in a bad feeling. Like I thought it was the movie. It wasn't the best movie, but it was a pretty good family friendly movie, and I don't regret seeing it.
Yeah, yeah. Might be something I see with my family over the break before they get back to school. We'll just have to wait and see.
Backyard TARDIS says we got Batman Forever, Jim Carrey. I think I somehow think that Batman Forever Jim Carrey is even more over the top than what we got here. Maybe it was sort of a hybrid between Ace Ventura and Batman Forever Jim Carrey, but not in a bad way. I didn't. It's not that I hated it, but it was a heavy dose of Jim Carrey. So some people may like that, some people may not like that. But I will say that if it's his last outing and they just kind of said, okay, well, in this one, Jim, you do whatever you want, it doesn't upset me.
Hmm.
Thought it was fine. Whalem03 said, Price, don't want to see what I'm doing. I don't know what you're doing. Let's leave it at that. And And then he wrote, "People loved Shadow." Yeah, I said people loved Shadow. I'm not saying that Shadow was bad. It certainly was a nice character, and it was drawn nice. But people thought that Keanu Reeves would bring so much to this role, and I think that Keanu Reeves. I don't look at him and think, "Wow, he's like this great voice actor." I think that he just is a very like. He actually is the most likable when you see him on screen. A
Yeah.
lot of the likability is that he just has this like likable presence, and I think that that is one of the reasons that man has a career. Yeah, I wouldn't call him the best actor. I've never seen Keanu Reeves and thought to myself, this guy is the best actor I've ever seen. I've seen him and thought to myself, this guy is a very likable guy. It's not bad though. It's not bad if you're on screen and people like you and you have this quality that automatically people kind of gravitate toward you or like you or think think of you positively. That's a good quality for an actor to have. But I will say that it doesn't mean that every single role in the world would be right for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I always like Jim Carrey, but he
I
did go a
like him
little,
too.
he did go a little goofy the last few years.
He has the Dead Man. I thought Price hated every movie. Just kidding. No, I don't hate every movie. Uh, Backyard Artist says that he didn't like his portrayal of Gerald Robotnik. Well, there's the older Robotnik and the younger one, and I guess he didn't like how he played the older one because the older one, I think he explained to me, should have been more serious, and they're just both variations of Jim Carrey. But you know what? Didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I can't blame Backyard Artist for thinking what he thinks, and I also somebody think like, oh, it's an overdose of Jim Carrey with two characters. Can't blame them either. Didn't make me not like the movie though. I actually thought to myself watching this that this is probably Jim Carrey's best work in years, in the sense that you could tell that he's really excited to be on this. He's getting paid well. I'm sure he's happy, but I feel like he was genuinely happy to be on set.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like maybe he needs to work. I'm not sure. But yeah, that's great. I mean, I do enjoy when it feels like the actors are having a good time,
Hey, Jeanette, it's
that,
good to see you
that they're
here. I feel
enjoying it.
like people associated the Shadow character with John Wick too much. Yeah,
That's funny.
and then Keanu Reeves seems down to earth, and he didn't have to do Bill and Ted 3. You know, I saw Bill and Ted 3. Some people were very forgiving towards it. I didn't like it very much. I thought that people were like, "No, it's organic that they have girls, and now they did this." Yes, yes, it's very organic. You can go watch it.
Yeah, very,
Uh,
very. Honestly, I did not hate that movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. I did think it was infuriating that they went back on the last film and they had girls instead of the boys that they clearly had at at the end of the second film, and
Yeah,
then
didn't they
they
have
were
boys?
girls.
That just
Yes.
annoys me. It's like, oh, in our day and age, they can't have boys. No, no,
Yeah.
that's what they had. Have the boys. Shut up. And the other
Yeah.
thing is that they were supposed to be the ones that played the song, and at the end, no, our girls are gonna play it. Ooh, no way. It's like, shut up
Mhm.
already. And the worst part, and this is the part that really, really, really bothered me, that they're trying to play the best song ever, and they brought Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
Kid Cudi, like that's who you brought to play the best song ever. That in and of itself, like if we're playing a game of what's called in Europe football, that would be a red card. Red card for bringing Kid Cudi into that song. I've
That's funny.
I've met I don't know how to say this. I've been in I've met Kid Cudi before. I don't think Kid Cudi should be in that song. It doesn't seem right to me.
Okay. I couldn't name a song that Kid Cudi was
Kid
part
Cudi
of.
has basically there was one song that he had that people were like, "Wow, this guy is so cool." It was this song called "Day and Night," and it was just a song. I don't know. Sometimes I can't blame people if they like something. I mean, they're like, "It's so cool. He's such a visionary genius." No, he's not. I think that "Day and Night" song. That sounds like a song that if you woke me up in the middle of the night and, like, gave me a microphone and, like, I was half asleep, that sounds like the song that I would record. But and other people are like, "Oh, he's so influential. He's inspired me as a musician." When people say that, it really kind of bothers me. I don't like it when somebody gets praised for doing nothing. But, if you like Kid Cudi, it's fine. I don't wanna take that away from you. You don't know that Day and Night song? I'm trying to think how it went.
No.
Day and night.
Just remember, I don't listen to popular music generally.
That's how the song went. Day and night. It was like it was this kind of miserable thing that he sings, and I wanna say that he sings out of tune. I actually think that he sings out of tune because that's the way he sings. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, somebody
Yep,
would maybe say, "Oh, it's such a creative choice to, like, not be able to hold the tune." I think he can't hold the tune, but what do I know, man? People listen to whatever they listen to, and, even this is a person I sometimes kind of say, "I met this person, I met that person." I was involved in something where some work-related thing, and I actually, um, met him, and, yeah, you know I guess what I'm saying that is that there's really nothing redeeming about him. Sometimes there have been cases where I met somebody who I thought was pretty nice, even if they did something artistic that wasn't to my liking. I could say, well, at least they seem like a nice person. But in this case, I don't really have anything to say. I don't like the musical output, and then, you know what I'm trying to say.
yep. There's a lot of
Day and night.
there's a lot of more modern music that I could just do entirely without, so
Whalem03 says Cuddy is washed up. I mean, listen, he still makes a living. People bring him to give him roles and stuff. I mean, that's another thing. At some point, he's like, "Oh, I want to be in movies and stuff," and like he actually gets roles. They're not usually leading roles, but he gets like small roles in things. The fact that he even has like an acting career is rather surprising because his acting, in my opinion, is not very good. It's really I struggle to find something that this guy does well. If when I think about it, but again, I don't want to be a hater. If you love Kid Cudi, that's fine. That's totally fine. I don't know how we got to talk about this. Change the subject.
Went
That was a
from
weird and we
Sonic and Mufasa to Bill and
we
Ted's
talked because of
to
Bill and Ted. Because
yeah,
of Shadow, we got to Bill and
yeah.
Ted, and that Bill and Ted brought in Kid Cudi, and then I thought about it, and it really,
So
really annoyed me, and I'm sorry for
we're
everybody
we're
that had to hear me rant now.
we're weaving like Donald Trump. We're going all over the
We're
place.
like, "He's such a loser, he's the worst. His ratings weren't even good." Yeah, I did totally did a Trump with him.
Yep.
Anyhow, Disney bullies theaters. That was an interesting let me see. Let me see what's going on. So, yeah, what we talked about the amount of locations.
Mhm.
I wonder, if all these situations will cause some of these theaters to rethink their deal with Disney, or Disney is just still too powerful.
I think some of these it feels like a lot of these theaters, are really still under their thumb in a way, like they're kind of beholden to them because they're such a huge distribution company, distributor of so many different films that they feel like they have to stay on their good side, I guess. I don't know. It seems really strange to me. You'd think that there would be plenty of competition out there to keep the theaters happy, but I mean, if I mean, all the Marvel films, all the Disney films, all the Pixar films, everything, all the properties that used to belong to Fox, now those are all stuff that's under Disney's banner. So maybe they do have a lot of influence. They can push the theaters around. I don't know. Have
Uh,
to have to ask a theater owner.
Kitty Bear says. Oh, sorry. Whalem03 says he paints his nails and wears skirts now. I don't know if he's referring to Kid Cudi. I don't know.
I mean, that's half of Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be more specific. And then things like this need to end up in court. Kid Cudi's nail polish. And then Jeanette says, I mean, after Reasons review, I can understand why Sonic did better than a movie nobody wanted. But like I said, I still saw enough parents bring their kids to this movie, and I'm sure some more people are going to do it. And internationally, The Lion King is still a brand that people know. I'm not underestimating that it can make a few dollars. It's not going to make as much as that other remake was, but some parents are going to still bring them to this movie. I explained, and I'll try not to get into a full conversation about it, but I think I explained it to you, Professor, that in my opinion, this still had that kind of underlying anti-West, quote unquote colonial, whatever it is, the usual nonsense that they're trying to push really felt like they managed to somehow shove it into a movie about talking lions. Like normally you'd think that they'll just stick to some kind of story that's good for the family. Instead, it feels like they really, really wanted to focus on this idea that the white lions were quote unquote outsiders that came to take everything from the regular lions, from the ones that were like the native lions, and had a very colonizer feel. I
Yes,
could be wrong. You could say, "Oh, you're
and
crazy, huh?
they
You think
were.
that it's the white lions and they're
Oh,
white lions, or they come to take everything. They're the outsiders. They come the light line." Yeah,
they
it could be that I'm crazy. It could be that I am a crazy, crazy person, or it could be that it's exactly what I said it was. And again, I've explained it before that at the end, the Mufasa people tell him, "You did it. Like you can be the king now," and he goes, "No, no, that's not right. People should vote for a king," or I don't know what he starts lecturing them, and it's like, dude, shut up. You're the Lion King, like, shut up voting for lions. This is just insulting. It's an
well, you
insult. He's the king of the jungle.
no.
What are you gonna do, a
See,
democratic vote?
here's the problem. He should have gone to the white lions to help them recognize their white privilege, and then they could start talking about how they could, make up for their whiteness. They recognize their whiteness, and then perhaps things would have gone better. But instead they just start fighting.
Uh, Disney Backyard Artists. Disney has so many of the big box offices, even though they have a lot of flops, theaters are worried about losing them over Paramount that basically has Mission Impossible. Yeah, there is still Warner. There's Warner, there's Sony, Universal. I mean, it's not like there's nobody releasing movies, but yeah, I think that Disney has a major stronghold on these theaters and these theater chains, and they're not afraid to use it. There's no point in which Disney ever kind of just says, "Oh no, maybe this time we won't do this annoying thing." Whatever it is that they have to do to push themselves, whatever they have to do to spin it, even if they fail, it has to be spun as a win, no matter what. They have to always explain that they're the best.
Yeah, well, how else would you know? They have to tell you they're the best.
Yeah, and people are saying here, if this movie actually matches up with The Lion King, it doesn't match up because in this movie, Scar gets his scar because he battles the white. Okay, I don't really care. This is a spoiler. You want to watch it, you can go watch it. But at the end of the day, what happens is that, and this is really the worst part about this Lion King movie, which I mentioned to you, I think, on another stream, but I'll recap it. The worst part of this Lion King movie is Mufasa, who you thought was always from a long line of lions and these kind of noble families, he's not noble. His parents, basically died when he was young because there was a flood. And as he was about to die from a flood, you know how in The Lion King there's that thing where Scar scratches his paws as he falls into the water?
Yes.
Here it's the opposite. he jumps up and then he uses his paws in the same way to pull him out of the water because he wants to save his life. That's how we're introduced to Scar. That Scar does the same thing, but instead of killing him, he's saving him. And from that moment, he sort of is the most wonderful Scar you've ever seen. He goes to his family and says, Mufasa is a stray. We gotta take him in. It's the right thing to do." Which, by the way, that also seems like a preachy thing. Meaning, there's a little. I couldn't help but feel like there's some kind of thing going on there that, like, even though he shouldn't be here, we should take him in, or do you get what I'm trying to say, Professor?
Yes. Yeah.
Something along those lines. I also felt a little bit of it, but he's like, "No, we got to do it." And then Scar's father, which again, they have ways of making the patriarchy at minimum look stupid in a movie that's like The Lion King. That's also really annoying. Like at every turn between the democracy and all this other stuff. So Scar's father is kind of like a douche. But not in a douche that he's kind of this kind of cunning and evil douche. He's just kind of like a jackass, like, but in a kind of sniveling, annoying way. And he goes, "No, no, like we could probably get rid of him. We can't bring him into our stray and this and that." And then Scar tells him, "No, it's the right thing to do." And then at the end, the father tells Scar, "I'm willing to do a race between you and Mufasa. And Mufasa wins. We can then we'll let him join our pride, even though it'll annoy him. But if Mufasa loses, it's implied that they'll kill him." So they do the race, and Scar, towards the end, even though Scar's the best and he's like much faster and much better than Mufasa, he kind of slows down at the end because he wants to save Mufasa's life again. Are you with me?
Yep.
So at this point, he's slower. He lets Mufasa win, and then the father accepts that, like, there's nothing he can do, and now he's going to be there. Now, what happens is there's another thing there that the father keeps telling. The father of Scar keeps explaining to Scar how great it is to be the king, because the king can just take a nap all the time while the women go out and do the hunting. Also strange. I don't remember that ever appearing in Lion King. Is that a thing?
I mean, that's what happens. Yeah, in real life. Yeah, the
Yes, but
females
it's
do most of the hunting.
I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm just saying that the way that he explains it to him annoys me. Do you get
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
It's not that I understand what they're saying, and I understand that it's based in reality. I'm just saying that within The Lion King, I don't remember Mufasa taking Simba and saying, "Simba, I like to sit around and do nothing all day while your mother works. Isn't that great? Don't you want to be the king?" I don't remember a conversation, and that's been pretty much the conversation between Scar and his father. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe he points out that he also guards the pride or whatever it is, but it doesn't feel serious. There's something sniveling about it, and just in general, how they made that Scar father seem sniveling. Like instead of being this kind of like a noble tiger, or even if he's bad, to make him very kind of decisive and this kind of like strong male lion, he seems like this sniveling guy, and that's the only way I can describe him. And then what happens is that one day those two white lions arrive. The outsiders, the white lion colonizers, show up, and they surprise Mufasa and Scar. Scar immediately sees them. He wants to hide somewhere, but Mufasa takes charge. He goes and like he gets into it with one of the white lions. He ends up killing that white lion. That white lion that came to attack them, he's the son of the main white lion. So one of the lions runs back, goes to tell the main guy what happens to his son. Mufasa basically tries to warn the pride that he was stray in, that they raised him like his own, even though they hated him. He tells them that those white lions, they're going to be back. And even then, finally, the father is like, "Listen, I respect what you've done here." Like he gives us some props to Mufasa for the first time ever, that Mufasa actually did something good. And meanwhile, he takes his son aside, and he knows his son was a coward, and he's like, "Forget about the fact that it doesn't matter what people said or whatever. You're the king. It doesn't matter." Like he was kind of telling him it doesn't matter if he was scared. Like none of that matters. He'll be the king. And then he sends them both away, and he says, "You got to leave now. You got to start your own pride somewhere else." That's also kind of weird. I mean, would the father just stay with the pride and send away the son and Mufasa to start their own pride? Is that a thing?
Uh, yeah, I don't know.
In the jungle, is
Yeah,
that a thing?
yeah. No idea. I
I've
mean,
never heard of that
I'm
happening.
certain that that happens on occasion, but um, yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, so basically, that is what Scar does in the original movie. What?
Well, when he becomes king, he sleeps around and makes the women go hunt.
Ah, I see. I
Yeah,
see. That's why I guess they're trying to. Maybe that was something they tried to tie. Now,
they're
this is
trying
where
to
the movie.
establish that for the for
Now,
the
now, what
original
happens is
film.
the second Mufasa and Scar leave, the White Lions really come to where the pride is with Scar's father, and it's understood that all those lions are done for. All the ones that were the Scar family, those White Lions, that's it. They take them out from
Mhm.
from what I understand. Uh,
Is one of the white lions named Kimba?
no, people keep asking that it's not Kimba. They made Kimba the bad guy. And then it was like two birds with one stone. One, they're white, and two, they're like Kimba, so they made him the bad
Right.
guy. In any case, this is where the movie gets really stupid because now Mufasa and what's his face and Scar, they're kind of like strays again. Both of them just walking around, and then they sort of team up with Zazu the bird and I don't remember how to pronounce it, but the woman lion, uh, yeah, the female like lioness, whatever you want to call her. So now they're like a foursome: the bird, and them two, and the lady and the female. And then they're walking around, and this is where the movie really starts to annoy me even more. I don't know why this is where it really annoys me, and it really falls off a cliff. Because at this point, what happens is that the lady really likes, or kind of, I think she likes Mufasa, but Scar likes her, and she kind of likes Mufasa. Don't like the live love triangle. It's really stupid and lazy and annoying. But at this point, Mufasa initially is trying to like sort of steer her in the direction of Scar because he feels like he's Scar's right hand man. He wants to help Scar become the head of the Pride. He is happy to be the number two guy. He owes Scar. Scar took him in. Scar saved his life on multiple occasions. He owes Scar, or maybe one time now he saved him, but he still owes him. So there's one point where she's sort of almost a girl boss. She's like, "We got to do this. There's elephants. We got to do this. We got to do that." And from this whole stampede thing, she almost dies. So Mufasa saves her, but when she wakes up, he basically tells her that Scar saved her because he wants her to like Scar. Are you still with me, Professor?
Yep.
So he wants her to love Scar, and then initially she's kind of a little nice to him, but the more she thinks about it and sort of gets a little bit back of her memory from what happened, she realizes that actually Mufasa saved her, and that Mufasa is just kind of trying to push her away, but he's very noble and nice. And at the end, she kind of keeps pushing and pushing, and he kind of warms up to her. And Scar one night just looks and sees them talking and sees that like she kind of likes Mufasa, and at that moment, that's it. Scar immediately goes to these white lions, which I think that it's implied that they killed all of his relatives and all that. He goes to these white lions. He immediately strikes a deal with them. Uh, they can kill Mufasa, and he'll join their pride. And I'm thinking to myself, that is very, very quickly escalating on a storytelling level. You really are going to take your brother, your guy that you consider your brother, that you've been through everything together for I don't know how many years, and there's one lady just talks to him for like 5 minutes, some lioness that you met 5 minutes ago, and you're willing to go to the biggest enemy that killed your family, strike a deal with them, join them, and kill the other guy. Do you understand how bonkers that is?
Yes. It doesn't
If
make it. It makes no sense.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And the thing is that they don't even build it up. I mean, if let's say they wanted to make him evil, let's say they both start off at kids, but gradually, you see like as they're growing older, little things that he does that you could tell, this guy, he has a little bit of an evil thing in him, but there's no build up to it. He just wakes up one day and wants to kill his brother. And then finally, like they all arrive at this mystical land, the Malele, whatever it is. It's a really long story, but at the end, there's like a showdown with the main white lion, and Mufasa and him go at it, and it looks like he kind of knocks Mufasa out, and he's about to kill him. And as he like picks up his hand to swipe Mufasa, Scar has a change of heart. Again, really poorly built change of heart. Just like it was out of left field that he went and he killed him, it seemed and wanted him killed. It seemed out of left field that he wants him saved now. I mean, it's just he does what the script needs of him, but it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't feel like Scar from what we saw later in the other movie. So Scar jumps in order to save Mufasa, and the king scratches him in the eye, and that's how he gets his scar. And then what happens at this point is that oh, this movie annoys me. In any case, at this point, what happens is that sort of Mufasa and Scar team up, and they end up they fall in the water. I'm trying to think if again Scar saves him or doesn't save him. I don't know. They fall in the water. No, he doesn't save him again. They fall in the water, and then Mufasa kind of gets out of the water, and all the other animals there tell him, "You're the king now. You're the king." And he's like, "No, no, I can't be the king. We need to vote for it or whatever. You guys need to vote who your king is." Some dumb thing. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was very clear that the idea was is that it has to be a democracy. If it's not a democracy, then I can't be the king. Really annoys me. And this was something similar that I saw in Kevin Smith's He-Man. Kevin Smith's He-Man, if you saw that stupid show, it ends with him becoming the king, and then he says, "I am relinquishing my title as king. We need to do what's it called, like voting." Elections or something like
Elections
this.
of democracy.
Yeah, and I want to nominate, and then he finds like the most diverse lady there, and he goes like, "I want to nominate this diverse woman. She should be like the leader of Eternia." And then everybody claps, and that He-Man crappy show ends. It's not, and again, it's not the diversity that bothers me. It's just how obvious it is what's going on there. It is so obviously weird that He-Man thing. If you ever saw it, that kind of felt to me a little bit like this, that he's like, "Oh, I don't want to be like that. It has to be a democracy." Same stupid type of agenda, even though it's a different company. I know that one wasn't Disney, but trust me, when these type of people all have the same stupid sniveling agenda. In this case, because it's the Lion King and they couldn't get away with it, he reluctantly agrees to be the king. And I don't think that his character, his personality, his backstory, Scar's backstory, I don't think it connects with a regular Lion King. And honestly, it connects so poorly. And in order to kind of make it seem like it's a part of it, the movie is actually a prequel and a sequel. Because you start off, you see Rafiki and Timon and Pumbaa telling stories to Simba's kid, and at the end he has another kid. So they're trying to make it like legitimize it. Like you may not think it's connected, but if you see these characters telling you the story, maybe it is connected. I don't know. In any case,
It's a
suffering.
the dead man was saying democracy in a monarchy. Yeah, so maybe it's more like a democratic people's republic, like North Korea.
And this is
It's
the thing.
democratic, but we always have the same leader who gets 100% of the vote.
And this is the thing, the dead man asked, "Does Disney realize that Scar is the bad guy?" That's the thing that bothers me. They love to blur the lines these days between good and bad. They did this with Star Wars too. Star Wars was a property that it was very clear that there was good and bad. Nope, under Disney, everything is shades of gray with Disney. There is no good and bad. We should try to, understand everybody's perspective. There is nothing that annoys me more than that mentality. That mentality which they're teaching children later when they see that there's children saying, "Hey, maybe those guys that did some attacks here in the US, on September 11th, that kind of thing, maybe those were good guys." Once I see idiot, like, younger Americans saying something like that, it's a result of this type of programming from this type of propaganda. Because from a young age, people are like, there is no good or bad. You always want to try to understand the villain. The villain is actually a swell guy. Scar was a swell guy. He was the nicest guy ever. That guy, he talked to his lady, which wasn't a lady. He met her 5 seconds earlier, right? And of course, what does it also say about, like, it's also sort of a quiet anti-patriarchy thing, that sort of, why was the big fight? Because he liked this woman and she liked him, and like over a woman, you know what I mean? Over a woman, they decided that
Mhm.
now they want to kill each other.
Yep.
It also sort of has a toxic vibe to it. There's a kind of anti-patriarchy feel to the movie. Maybe it's not. It's a little more subtle, or executed in a way that's a little more underneath the surface than some of the other Disney stuff that I've seen. Sometimes a lot blunter, but it's still there. And at this point, they just can't fool me. Like, I see it, and I see exactly what's being done, and now I don't care if nobody else can see it, and I don't care if people say I'm crazy. I said Every single movie of theirs that I've analyzed and explained that they put the propaganda in there, I stand by what I said.
People have been saying a lot about how Disney's backtracking. They're going to take all of this stuff out of their films. They are not. There's no way. They're not going to take it out of all their films. It's just going to go into the subtext. It's just going to go underground. They're going to keep pushing it. There's far too many activists bumping around inside of Disney for them to just say, "Well, I guess that experiment failed. We're going to give up on trying to push this stuff on children and what have you." It's still going to be there.
It's the Phobos is saying it's like Ant-Man's socialist royalty. That was so annoying too. That movie was so terrible, and the fact that he comes out and he's like, "People talk about communists like it's a
Yeah.
bad thing," and it's like, dude, like, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
I felt so bad for Michael Douglas because I really don't know that he got up in the morning. You can say that Hollywood actors are leftists and whatever. I don't think that Michael Douglas woke up in the morning wanting to talk about communism in some stupid movie. And of course, they also made him look bad that Bill Murray was like with his wife when he was gone. They did everything to make
Oh
Michael
yeah.
Douglas's character look like a sort of not strong male
I believe
that
the word
loves
you're looking for
communism.
is cuck. That's the word.
That is the word. He is that cuck and commie.
Yeah.
I don't know how they managed to combine between
Yeah.
like that and commie, but they somehow managed to do it.
Yes. Well, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be going to see it. I've had the whole thing just recounted for me here by Price, so now
Price of Reason Live.
definitely
This
do not need to go see it.
I don't recommend it. I mean, you can go see it, and maybe you'll tell me, you know what? I felt differently about it. Murakstra says, right, Price of Reason Live, just say it already. They ain't no way to hide their lion eyes. And the final thing, and then I've said this before, probably I've said it to you also. In the original movie, back in the day, Disney had a practice that, let's say for The Lion King, they brought Elton John. And I think that for Tarzan, whatever that it was, they brought like Phil Collins. Uh, Basically the idea was to bring a person who was like a certified hit maker uh that's not untalented. I mean, both Elton John and Phil Collins, for me, when I think about them, I think of very cheesy music, pop music, but at the same time I also recognize that they're both good musicians. I don't love the cheese always, but you know what? If there was ever a place that their cheese actually works, and especially Elton John, The Lion King, his cheesy brand of music is perfect for it. It is perfect, and he knows how to play music. He knows how to compose. He knows how to create hits, and his music in those movies are some of his best work. I think that he absolutely knocked it out of the park in The Lion King with his music. In this case, they're like, instead of Elton John, let's bring Lin Manuel Miranda and just give him the
God, they
keys
bring him everything,
every time, and it's
and
like,
he's delivered some real stinkers.
yes. It's like, listen, I'll tell you this, like, they give him a soundtrack, he does, like, 10 songs. Out of 10, maybe 1 will be passable, but it's like, he's not that kind of guy. Also, to be fair, he's not a hit maker. You could say whatever you want about Elton John and about Phil Collins, and you could say even the cheesy thing and whatever you want, but A, they're both solid musicians, even if some of their output is on the cheesy pop side. 2, I don't think anybody can argue that those 2 aren't hit makers.
Yeah.
Meaning the proof is in the pudding. If you go and Google now how many hits Phil Collins has, how many hits Elton John has, those people know how to generate hits. In the years that they were approached, they were like a machine of hits. So at least they went to the right people. Lin Manuel Miranda, is he a hit machine?
I wouldn't say so. No, he
The
had
only thing he had was we.
one very successful musical with Hamilton, which honestly I didn't care for.
You
But
know,
then I don't care
it
for hip
was a
hop
gimmick.
music,
It was a
so
gimmick. You know what I mean? It was more of a gimmick than
yeah.
anything else. It's like, what if the founding fathers were rapping and blah, fine, whatever. It's fine. If you're into that kind of thing, it's fine. I really I thought it was just some dumb crap to me personally. I'm not saying that it wasn't well written or well done or whatever. It's fine. But I'm just saying that it really, based on that, I wouldn't really get excited and want to hire him for stuff. Certainly not giving him the keys to every single movie and every single soundtrack. And the only thing that I know that he had like a quote unquote hit was what's it called? We don't talk about, what was it from Encanto or something? We don't talk about
We don't talk about Bruno. Was that
Man,
the
I don't understand how that song was a hit. People told me, "We don't talk about Bruno, it's so great," and then I put it on once, and again, I was suffering. It was real suffering, me listening to that song, and, I don't know what's so great about it, but I will say that in this movie you could tell that he doesn't have, in my opinion, what it takes, and he's overrated. Out of all the songs, I think there was one song that sounded a little bit Lion King-ish. Even then, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong on this. I'm about 90% sure of this. You know how in the real Lion King and the one from 1994, you had the Elton John music?
Mhm.
Tim Rice lyrics, Hans Zimmer score, and then there was a guy called like Lobo B or something like that, Lebo B, and he, I think, was the arranger of all the, all the kind of African style voices in
Yeah.
like the circle of life.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you know how that there's a kind of more like Africa sound to it? I
Yes.
think that that guy helped with some of the voices and the kind of the arrangement of the Africa style. And I think that that's the only guy they brought back. So I feel like there was one song that maybe that guy contributed a little bit of that, and it sounded a little bit Lion King-ish, not as good. And between Lin Manuel's music and lyrics, it still wasn't on par with it. And that's probably the highlight of his stupid score. Most of the rest is just crappy songs that you forget them the second you hear them. They don't have that kind of charm that the original one had.
Not at all. No. Much like the songs, performed in the updated version of The Little Mermaid, which Lin-Manuel Miranda was, part of that soundtrack as well, with the amazing squawking song sung by Aquafina. So, yeah, just not does not have the same charm. It does not have the same talent behind it. It's yeah, it's nothing compared to the original.
No. Why did Jeanette say something about Peter Gabriel? I feel like I missed a comment and I don't know
Let's
if I missed
see.
a comment.
Jeanette said,
All I know is that
that yeah, she said Phil Collins is a master of music and lyrics.
I how did I miss that? In any case,
Yeah,
Eraserhead said, answered her, Jeanette, I prefer Peter Gabriel's lyrics.
yeah.
Phil's a great musician, but every song he's ever written is I'm Phil Collins and I can't get laid. Uh, that was actually really funny. Uh, you know what? I
Mm.
think that Phil Collins' best work in Genesis was actually when Peter Gabriel was there. I think that had they grown together and maybe worked even a little more collaborative, there could have been very interesting things there. The second that Peter Gabriel left, Peter Gabriel really had an edge, and I feel like Phil Collins doesn't quite have that more artsy edge. He's just more commercial. At the same time, though, he's a great drummer and he understands music. I can't rip on him and say, "Oh, he's not a good musician." He's a good musician. It's just somehow the output of what he does is kind of cheesy. And I also think that there were a few points in his career that he had these kind of ballads that did well for him. And rather than it's that same thing that we talk about Aerosmith and a lot of these other bands. Suddenly he saw some ballad do well, and he's like, you know what? I can do more of these ballads. I can do more of them, and that really is sad sometimes when an artist that could do so many things kind of falls into one kind of like sappy song that he keeps writing over and over again. That kind of happened to Elton John too. Maybe even because Can You Feel the Love Tonight? I feel like after that, every song he's ever released sounds like Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
You can't get in a trap when you have a big hit and you've got something that worked really well, and then not only do you get in can artists get into the trap where well they need to create another one just like that one so that it's the same hit. that the previous one was, but also you get into the trap of people expecting that everything you make is going to sound just like that other big hit that you made. So
But when you're somebody like Phil Collins, you can rise above that. You don't need to continue to do the same ballad over and over again. Same with Elton John.
yeah,
Muraxtra says Lynn's highest charting single hit number 20 in the US. He has three others that charted 49, 72, and 93. So yeah, that pretty much proves my point that can he do some offbeat Hamilton thing? Can he do some Broadway songs? Maybe he can do them. But I think that what was special about those songs that it wasn't the traditional Broadway musician they brought
yeah,
in. It was actually a guy that's a hit maker that they wanted to create something that even is sort of beyond the movie. The fact that Elton John was there singing those songs and in being involved, it actually sort of lent credence to the whole production. It sort of showed, oh, like we're taking this very seriously. We're bringing a guy like with like crazy amount of hits to come here and like a guy who's very well respected, not for just writing some weird Hamilton crap or whatever it is, but somebody that like as a musician is more respected. If you understand what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. Agreed.
So oh, I apologize to the viewers of this channel that I really went on a rant on this. I don't know why. Every time somebody reminds me of that Mufasa thing, it annoys me. But the movie kind of annoys me on every level, and I just sometimes I don't know if I'm crazy and it's just me or that's the way it is. I guess you guys are welcome to go see the movie. You can tell me what you thought. That's the vibe that I got from it. And again, Sonic was a fun movie. Not perfect, but fun. Totally different experience. I saw them in I think in the same 2 days or something. I saw I think I first saw Sonic, then I saw the next day I think I saw Mufasa, and really a world of difference. The type of experience I had. I
Yep.
even felt that I enjoyed Venom 3 more than that Lion King thing. I saw Venom 3 in the theater. I saw it a bit late, but I saw it in the theater. It was a dumb, stupid, ridiculous movie, and I didn't hate it. It never took itself seriously enough that I had to
Yeah,
really sit. You could pick apart some weird things that happen there. It's not the best written screenplay. There's some stuff there that is super convenient, a little cringe even at one point. And as dumb and silly as things are, there's somehow a feeling about it that people wanted you to be entertained, and there's some angle of fun, and I like that angle, even
yeah.
if the movie is super flawed.
I think I feel like you can really enjoy a movie when it doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't have that pretension of, look at what a movie I am. Look how good I am. Like it. You can have a movie and it's like, you know what? No, this is not going to be an Oscar winner. It's not going to win Golden Globes. It's going to be a movie that we're going to go out and have some fun with. And if the people making it are having fun, and if the script is kind of fun, it doesn't have to be great for you to go and enjoy it. And if you can enjoy Venom, awesome. Go enjoy it. No, it's not going to be Shakespeare, and it's not going to be winning any big awards. But if you can have fun with it, if it doesn't take itself too seriously, then it's a lot easier to just kind of sit down and enjoy what there is to enjoy.
I agree. Venom is dumb fun. That's the way I describe Venom. I've said that on many videos that I think that Venom is dumb fun, and I think that's a fair evaluation of those movies, all three of them.
Well, and I thought that was, Deadpool and Wolverine. Not an amazing script.
No,
And honestly, a lot of the dialogue isn't all that great either.
no,
But it just doesn't take itself too seriously. You're just kind of having fun with it, and you just kind of ride the roller coaster of ridiculousness with what's happening on screen. It doesn't
I
have to be it doesn't have to be complex. It's just kind of dumb fun, like you said.
totally. I see that the dead man says, much like Tom, I love your rants. Oh, I thank you very much, Tom. I have a lot of respect for Tom. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Marla Sharondoff said, "Me too." I hope she meant me too, that she likes my rants and not me too the movement. uh,
You got some splaining to do, Price, if you're getting me too.
uh,
It's time for that quad box apology on X. Yeah, now that you've enjoyed telling everyone about how terrible the Lion King Mufasa is, we should probably talk about this week's episode of Skeleton Crew.
yes, I watched it. You know what? I'm going to tell you something about this week's Skeleton Crew that may surprise you. The last maybe 5 to 10 minutes of that episode showed a kernel of something that wasn't terrible. The only problem is that I waited 5 episodes until the last maybe like 5 minutes of the last episode of the 5 episodes to see that.
Yeah,
Like the fact that Jude Law kind of becomes evil and does all that thing that you see, I kind of thought that was interesting. But that's the type of vibe that I would have preferred to have seen from day one in terms of the vibe of the show should have been a lot more something like that. That was like a little moment that it was a little darker, which I think is good. And I didn't hate that, but again, so much stupid stuff happens as well. What did you think about it?
of all the episodes that have happened so far, it might have been the least annoying. Although I did feel like a bunch of it just felt like I was watching scenes stolen straight out of Goonies. When they're underground and they're trying to figure out all these different puzzles to get into the pirates' secret, cove or whatever, secret cave where his pirate logs are, so they can find out where their planet is. And awfully convenient that after the previous episode where Smee was ready to murder all of them, they just we fixed his memory circuits and now he's not going to kill anybody. Now he's obedient. Okay, sure. And yeah, landing on the like pleasure planet or whatever,
Yeah, I mean,
spa planet, kind of strange. But yeah, the heel turn there at the end when he's like, "Oh hey, um, just murder all those pirates back there. Just do that for me." And the robot does it, and then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I'm taking charge now, and I know the rules, and I'm going to challenge you, and I really don't want to hurt you, so just give up." And I mean, I'll give him this. They didn't have her girl boss her way through the fight and beat up a grown man, and win the fight. She did actually have to give up, and I will admit, I did laugh when he turned the lightsaber on upside down.
that
I
was, I mean,
I did laugh at that.
that's what I'm saying, that there was a few minutes there that actually, they because at this is the only point where she wasn't like a girl boss that can overpower him, and
Mhm.
that twerp like being clumsy was actually a bit amusing,
Yeah,
and that Jude Law being kind of a jerk is like it works with the story. It really was like the only 5 minutes that have worked for me until now in the entire show, and I'll tell you why. I thought about this. See, the thing with the Goonies is what's cool about the Goonies. They have their everyday life. There's a problem with a house. The bank wants to do this. The bank wants to do that, and the kid is like, maybe we'll find the treasure of One-Eyed Willie. And they want to go on this crazy
yep,
adventure to find the treasure. But that is simple and easy to follow. There's trouble at home. In addition, this guy dreams, the kid, of pirates and treasures, and then they go on their way and they have this quote unquote like magical adventure, which ends at the end the way it ends. And it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an ending, and the way it's built is very satisfying. It's not the perfect movie, but I think that as a movie for kids and a movie of its day, I think that it did everything fine. This one makes everything convoluted. The idea of the planet where they found the spaceship on to get off of it, and then they keep looking for their own planet, is super convoluted and annoying. And all the ideas around it of, okay, let's find this planet. Oh, it's that planet. Oh, it's the brother of this planet. Oh, let's talk to an owl. The owl, oh, you should go to this planet. Okay, let's go to that planet. Now let's go to here to find the coordinates. That really annoys me.
yeah.
I would
Just
prefer I would prefer that they just find the treasure. Just go on a treasure hunt and leave me alone with this stupid Atten and your stupid coordinates that for 5 episodes, such dumb, crappy nonsense with their stupid coordinates. Sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was just yeah, I was thinking the kind of the same thing. Yeah, it's the Goonies works. It's not the greatest movie ever. I enjoyed it as a kid. As an adult, I can see the cracks. I can see the places where it's kind of sloppy and takes a lot of shortcuts, but it's still kind of fun. And but I just this in particular, like I swear there were scenes that was just like, wow, I'm watching the Goonies. This feels just like I was surprised that when they got through the last little thing, they weren't going to go in and have to play an organ made out of skeleton, bones.
All we
But
needed is that like Cyndi Lauper song to come up
yeah,
in the background.
yeah, girls just wanna have fun.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, I did. Like I said, like you were saying, like the last couple of minutes, like it felt like, oh, they actually had some direction here. They're actually going to do something with this beyond just recreating the Goonies and Treasure Island, right? You're like, oh nope, guess what? I'm taking charge now. Although, honestly, if you're looking at the plot of Treasure Island, or honestly, people have said actually it's even closer to ripping off the Disney movie Treasure Planet and some of the some of the plot points from that in that adaptation of Treasure Island. So it's almost like a ripoff of a ripoff, but or a ripoff of a retelling or whatever. But the overall, like there were some things that were okay with the episode. And then the ending I thought did a lot for it as an episode. But so far, I'm still just I do not get the people that are just jumping up and down, cheering this on as the best thing Star Wars has made in years. I mean, perhaps it's better than some of the things they've made so far. It's certainly better than The Acolyte. It's certainly better than the third season of The Mandalorian, but it's not good. It's just okay.
Uh, okay. I guess there's a little talk about drummers, and I wanted to weigh in here as much
Yes.
as I can. Uh, I guess Istophobos says, okay, Istophobos says that Phil Collins was a great progressive drummer, but lacked the taste to be a great pop drummer. Yet was sensible enough not to try. I think that Phil Collins was great as a progressive drummer and a pop drummer. I think he's fine, but really, somebody a race Istophobos says Eraserhead. Ringo is one of the greatest drummers of all time because he was able to and chose not to do in the style of music. What I will say about Ringo Starr, just I want to throw that in there because I see that Adam Gray also says Ringo gets a bad rap.
He does.
I'll tell you what the problem is. Not the problem is the problem that Ringo Starr has. I think that a lot of people sometimes don't understand historical context. When the Beatles became a band, there weren't 70 other rock bands like them with like a four-piece of these kind of young guys doing this kind of rock and roll thing. You'd think, oh, there were a million bands like this, but there weren't actually a million bands like that.
No.
And the fact that they did it, in many ways, they sort of cemented what it is to be like a rock band in the modern era. And they didn't have a million other rock bands like them to look and sort of use as a reference. They just did whatever they were doing just based on what looked cool to them. Today, by today's standards, you can find a lot of drummers that can, maybe do what Ringo Starr did. But at the time, what he did, people loved Ringo Starr and what he did. And there's a lot of drummers today that you'll say, "Oh, I love this drummer. This is my favorite drummer." And if you meet that drummer and you say, "Hey, what got you into drumming? What do you like?" In many cases, these kind of iconic drummers will tell you Ringo Starr. I saw
Yep.
Ringo Starr. I knew I had to be a drummer. I couldn't believe what he was doing. Uh, Sometimes you need that early person to sort of create that spark, or lay the groundwork or lay the foundation or whatever it is. It's the same with George Harrison. You can find people today with better technique, with better sound, with better distortion, with better equipment. You can find everything, but at that time he didn't have a million people to look at as reference. He basically had to step in and be, a rock player in a guitar band,
Yeah.
like a guitar player that plays rock in a rock band. And same with Paul McCartney on bass. He stepped in and did that whole bass thing again. That laid the groundwork. There's a lot of people until today that'll tell you, "Wow, Paul McCartney and his bass lines." So, yeah, you can take all of these things and you can bring them to 2024 and look at everything that we have, and maybe it doesn't always look to you like it's the best thing ever technically or whatever it is, but I think that within the context of the time they did it, it's spectacular. And that's what kind of makes these musicians and their bands special, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you're right, and several people in the chat too have said, that Ringo got a bad rap, and if you're talking to musicians and asking them, you know, what they thought of Ringo, yeah, I've actually known a couple of accomplished musicians, and one of them, very very talented drummer, and yeah, he will tell you. Ringo, some of the things he does in those songs gets absolutely no appreciation whatsoever, and he's incredibly talented drummer. It's just his work kind of gets discounted because you've got the really big names of Lennon and McCartney at the top of the ticket, and
And
yeah,
also,
Ringo was an incredibly talented drummer. You actually really had four really talented musicians, and not just were they really talented, but they were also hardworking musicians. They did not just show up and give it their best shot. They were really good at iterating on their work and
No, but you also have to
working
understand how
together.
things evolve. Meaning,
Yeah.
what was considered like a revolutionary drummer in 1962 3 is not the same thing as what maybe drummers are capable of today.
Oh yeah.
But again, he laid the foundation. He was one of the forefathers of anything rock related, which is why I think that his work there, uh, easy to discount looking at it from a lens of today, but not easy to discount if you actually look at where his place is in music history. And Istafobos wrote Pete Best, that was their previous drummer, wasn't a
Yeah.
good drummer. They went back to Liverpool and found the best drummer in the north of England. That was Ringo. Okay, so Pete Best, the only reason that he was even their drummer to begin with, from what I recall, is his mother was basically, she had a club in Liverpool. And initially, in order to get like a regular steady gig sort of in Liverpool, the mother needed them to have her son in the band. So that was almost like a political deal initially, that they took him in. I don't know how much they liked him. He was fine enough. He's from Liverpool, he's from the same area as they are. So they accepted that. To tell you that they thought he was the best drummer, he probably wasn't. Just so you know, initially there was also another guitar player. There was Stuart Sutcliffe. Stuart Sutcliffe played bass. Paul McCartney played guitar. John Lennon played guitar and keyboard or something. Sometimes George Harrison played guitar, and and Pete Best played drums. And Stuart Sutcliffe ended up. They went to Germany. That's really what changed everything. They went to Hamburg. The Beatles went to Hamburg in 1961 or whatever it was, 1960. And
Yeah.
in Hamburg, they were there, I think, for a year or two. And they used to play every night, multiple sets. Really, really kind of in this club of a bunch of like criminals, thugs, ladies of the night. It was like in the worst place, in the worst district. And the Beatles were there performing at this like dump in the middle of this like crazy place, performing multiple sets a night, long sets. And that's how they also later, when they went into the studio, and all their songs are so tightly recorded, a lot of times in these kind of one takes, or especially the early material, that they didn't have a lot of tracks and the equipment was primitive. The fact that they were so tight as a band is because of how many hours they logged in playing in
Hmm.
Berlin over and over again. And as to what you said about Pete Best and him not being a good drummer, what actually happened was is that Stuart Sutcliffe, by the way, do you know any of this, Professor, or do
I've
you know
heard
any?
some of it, yeah, I'm not super familiar with the story,
But
yeah.
so what happened to Stuart Sutcliffe is that two things happened. When they were in Germany, he met some lady. I think her name was Ingrid Astra. I don't know what, something like that. I could be making a mess of the name, but the Astrid, something like that. Not Ingrid, it was Astrid. That's what I feel like the name was. I'm going to
Mhm,
go with Astrid. In any case, they fell in love. He got married, and he wanted to stay with her. In addition, in one of the final shows, I guess that he was with the Beatles, they got into a fight in some alley. And this isn't odd for it to happen. I mean, they were in this really horrible place with like a bunch of thugs. They got into a fight in an alley, and apparently he got hit in the head. What is it? It is believed until this day, even though with medicine today, then nobody really knows. It
mhm,
is believed that he suffered some kind of hit to the head that caused some kind of problem with his brain or something. And what he did, he afterwards he kept having these headaches. So the Beatles moved on without him. They went back to England, I guess. One of the reasons they had to go back to England is that Pete Best, he took a condom and started playing with the condom. He pasted it on a wall or something, and then the police arrested him. I know this sounds weird. I know it sounds weird. There's something about Pete Best in a condom that he pasted on a wall, and then the police arrested him. And then I guess they told him, "Listen, you and your friends got to get out of Berlin immediately." So they went back to Liverpool, and at this point, they were already getting in touch with these labels and things like that. And Stuart Sutcliffe stayed behind, and he actually would eventually, within a year or within a few months, he dropped dead. Sorry, I know that's not a nice thing to say. I don't know how else to say it. He one day just collapsed and died.
mhm,
People
yeah,
think that it still had to do something with the fight in the alley. A lot of people say that for many years John Lennon secretly felt guilty uh, for what happened with that alley and for what happened to Stewart, and that within the band, even though Stewart wasn't a great musician, he actually was the one that John Lennon respected the most because he had this kind of artsy attitude and vibe, and just as a person, John really respected him. Found him a lot more of like a camaraderie with him than with Paul. Really took that very hard. The fact that he kind of collapsed and died. Back to Pete Best. What happened was is that they're now in England and they got set up with George Martin at EMI and all that stuff. George Martin was initially a guy that did orchestras. He would do funny orchestra stuff, and
yeah,
this
he
kind of
did a lot
off
of big band stuff
big
before,
band
yeah,
orchestras, funny things, I don't know what. And basically they had a band they didn't know what to do with, and a producer they didn't quite know what to do with. They teamed them up and they said, what can you do? It turns out that this was like a match made in heaven. It's like a perfect match. George Martin apparently heard this band and he said, you know what? I can do something with these musicians. The drummer's got to go. He is not able to keep a beat. Now, you have to understand that in 1960, 61, or whatever it is, you couldn't just um, you couldn't just sort of be okay at drums and keeping a beat. You didn't have Pro Tools, you didn't have computers and these kind of DAWs that do like the sound recordings, that do quantizing, that fix everything. You didn't have samples or beats. Your drummer needed to be like a machine. And this is another thing that people don't realize when they talk about Ringo. He had to be perfect, like a machine. So basically, at this point, what happened was is George Martin said, I'll work with these guys. They got to get rid of got to get rid of Pete Best."
yeah,
And apparently, they never really felt that he was the greatest drummer. In
yeah,
addition, and this is very important, while they were in Berlin, Pete Best, who in addition to sticking condoms on the wall and getting arrested, he used to like using condoms a lot. And I guess sometimes he would disappear or something like that when they needed to perform. I'm not suggesting that he disappeared to use condoms. I don't really know. I know that he sometimes would get sick, quote unquote, or disappear, or whatever it is. Now, there was another band there called Rory and the Hurricanes, or something like that. And their
mhm,
drummer, that was a much more established band, and they spent time in Berlin also. Their drummer was Ringo Starr.
yep,
And Every time that Pete Best disappeared for whatever reasons, they would ask Ringo Starr as a favor, can you sit in for us? We don't know where our drummer is, or our drummer says he's sick, or whatever it is. And Ringo would come along and play with them. And every time that Ringo would sit in with them, according to what, legend has it, and I think things that they've said, they always felt that he was in their mindset, that like he was the drummer that they wanted. He was in another band. They didn't really have a contract. They didn't have anything to offer him. But if they had it their way, that to them felt like a much more serious drummer. But they still, out of loyalty and whatever their band was, they kept the guy they had, and he wasn't their drummer. So it was what it was.
Mhm.
But when George Martin said, I want to get rid of him, he wanted to put in a drummer called Alan White. And what happened was is that they even brought Love Me Do. There's one version, I believe, of Love Me Do that Alan White plays the drums. There's two versions of Love Me Do. I think one is Alan White on the drums. The other one is Ringo on the drums. Most people don't know that. They brought him in, and he already recorded, and they got annoyed because they said Alan White is a guy from London or something. He's more of like a session musician. And
Yeah.
they told George Martin, if you're going to do, we're not taking any kind of transplant in our band. If you want us to be the group that we need to be, we need a guy that's like us, that comes from the same background as us, that we're coming from the place. We have a rapport, a relationship with him. It has to be Ringo Starr, who's also from Liverpool. Has to be him. And George Martin initially didn't like the idea, but he reluctantly agreed. That they basically told him, listen, leave whatever stupid band you're in now. It wasn't a stupid band, but compared to their opportunity, kind of starting to look stupid, they said, why don't you come in? They flew him in, or whatever they needed to do. He came in, played the drums. George Martin started like not feeling great about him at the beginning, but he just kind of warmed up to him,
Mhm.
and he said, okay. He ended up really liking him, but the initial thing was he liked him more than Pete Best, but he still kind of preferred his own Alan White session musician. At the end, he accepted Ringo, re-recorded Love Me Do, and the rest was history.
Yep.
I bet
Yep.
you didn't know that I can do lectures on the
Well,
Beatles.
no, I did not know you knew it at in that level of detail. I had heard a number of, some of the things that you had talked about, like, that, Pete was initially just with the band because they had to find somebody, and he was willing to go to Hamburg.
And you want to
I
know,
know that, I knew that there had been some issues in the band with Pete, not, up to and including that he wouldn't, adopt the same haircut that the rest of them were doing, right? To, like, fit in with the rest of the band. He wasn't willing to do that, and then people got frustrated with that. I had heard that he was a bit of a ladies' man. Yeah, I had heard that. And, I knew that in fact that there had been complaints that Pete was not just his style of drumming was pretty limited as to what he could do. He had difficulties with some of the more complex rhythms. He could really just play on the fours, right? It just and that was about it. And so when they had the opportunity to bring on Ringo, that they had seen him playing with other bands then, and I think, yeah, perhaps even done some sets with him in the past. Like, he was just so much more capable at doing so many different things on the set than Best was. And yeah, that initially, yeah, there was some pushback from the producer, from Martin, but yeah, eventually he won him over. So
I
yeah.
I I I want to say here that Alan White is not considered. Later, he would work, and I think somebody mentioned that he even did some work with Lennon. Nobody is claiming that Alan White wasn't a good drummer.
Yeah.
I think that the problem was is that they didn't, and this is what they also told George Martin. It wasn't just a matter if the guy could drum or not. They didn't want a mercenary in their band. They were from Liverpool, from a very specific area, specific upbringing, families without a lot of money, very, very specific type of culture, behavior, things that they really understood each other, a camaraderie of sorts. And for them, they wanted a guy that felt like he was one of their own. And Ringo is a guy that was from their neighborhood. He was, I think, a few years older than most of them. He was actually like had maybe 2 or 3 years. He's the oldest Beatle. Until today, he's actually the oldest Beatle, and they knew him. They wanted him in the band. They've worked with him, and that's what they wanted. And at the end, he understood it and he let it go. Alan White was not a bad option.
Mhm.
It had more to do, and I think let's not undersell Ringo Starr. He was great too. Somebody was talking about Pete Bruford and Yes. Yes is an amazing band. They've done some amazing music, but that is another kind of era. Without the Beatles, I don't think you'd have Yes. You wouldn't have Pink Floyd either. You wouldn't have Led Zeppelin. You wouldn't have the Rolling Stones. I think that the Beatles really opened the door and laid the groundwork for all of these, including Ringo Starr. There is a final anecdote that I want to tell you, Professor, since I am a strange kind of I don't want to say what word am I looking for? I understand a lot about music history and Beatles
Yes.
specifically. There is one final anecdote that I want to tell you that most people don't know. Pete Best's mother, apparently, when the Beatles were doing all this stuff and they were playing in their club and I don't know what, they had a road manager, sort of like part of their management team. Initially, I think he was a road manager, tour manager. He ended up being, maybe an official part of their management group in later years, but he was always with them. And his name, I think, was Neil Espinel. Now, Neil, what happened is that he stayed at the house of Pete Best during some years that they performed or whatever it is. And when he was at the house of Pete Best, the mother that owned the club apparently took a liking to him. So they started spending time in the house when Pete didn't notice. Uh, this Neil guy, which was significantly younger, more along the lines of his age, like a relatively young man, was spending time with his mother. And it turns out that he got the mother pregnant. So she had a baby
Mhm.
from the road manager of the Beatles that became the brother of Pete Best.
Yeah.
Yep, that is a strange development, but that is all true. You can check that, and I think that for years that Neil Espinel at least took care of this baby. So even though Pete Best got the short end of the stick here, uh, his mother, I guess, didn't. And also, when there was the anthology and they released some tracks that even Pete Best played on, I think they offered him some kind of lump sum of money. He made some kind of money there. So
Mhm.
it's a life probably of regret and a life where you could be really depressed of what could have been. I totally I don't know Pete Best, but I have to say that there's a part of me that feels for that guy. Imagine you're a part of the Beatles and when George Martin sees you, he gets rid of you and brings in Ringo and you're gone. That's really tough. A lot of people, I don't know how it's very difficult to recover from that.
Yeah, definitely, especially when it's so very public. I remember there's a in that the Simpsons episode that recalls a whole bunch of the journey of the Beatles to prominence and a whole bunch of the different things that happened throughout their lives. There's even a joke in there about Pete Best departing because when he was leaving, there were fans that would chant outside their shows, "Pete Best forever, Ringo never." And there's a they even do that joke in that Simpsons episode where they sing, "Wiggum forever, Barney never." So,
Yeah, and by the way, initially I think people were like, "Where's Pete Best?" There were people that said that initially when they
yeah,
replaced
yeah,
him.
he had some fans, not a lot, but
The
he had
ladies liked him, I
some
guess, but
fans. Yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, with the type of audience that the Beatles then built, none of this mattered. And really, Ringo is the perfect fit for them. I understand why they insisted on him, and
yeah, yeah,
I totally can see it. Also, from just a personal level, when you see all the interviews with them, you could tell that those four have a real connection.
yeah, yeah. And they said a number of times they as a trio outside of Best were kind of these wacky sort of underdog guys. They hadn't done the best in school. They were really into their music. They had a lot of fun, and Pete was maybe a bit too sensible. He just didn't gel with
No,
with
he
their attitude and what they wanted to do, and I think that was a big part of it. And then Ringo coming in, he was all in, right? He was all in for having fun with it and doing wild and wacky things and trying new musical styles and all sorts of stuff. And so
Void
yeah.
King says, "Fun fact: the Beach Boys released their first record before the Beatles came to America." That's possible. Another fun fact is that without Pet Sounds, we may not have had Sergeant Pepper, because what happened was is that I think that I'm trying to think for a second. What was it? Now here, you're gonna have to help me, Professor. There was something. Uh, I think that what happened was is that Paul McCartney, if nothing else, heard the Beach Boys, or without the Beach Boys, we wouldn't have Sergeant Pepper. And I think that now I remember. I think that Paul McCartney heard the Beach Boys maybe one before Pet Sounds, whatever that album was, and he really thought to himself, "Wow, the Beach Boys are doing something interesting here. We got to step up our game." So then he came and he did, they did Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and at the same time, Brian Wilson was working on Pet Sounds. And when I think that maybe uh, Sergeant Pepper was maybe, which one was released sooner? Either one was an answer to the other, or regardless, I know one
So
thing.
yeah, Beach Boys Party was 65.
Okay.
Then following that was Pet Sounds in 66, and then Sergeant Pepper's
So got
was
it. So I was
67.
right the first. I know what it is. So basically what happened was they released Pet Sounds and they thought to themselves, "This is such a great album. We did it." And the Beatles heard this and said to themselves, "We got to step up our game." And their sort of quote unquote answer, in sort of a friendly competition, if you want to call it, to the Beach Boys, was they did Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And I think that after Brian Wilson heard that album, the Sergeant Pepper, he became really depressed. I think that at the time he was trying to do more stuff and working on something, and it really, really, in addition to all of his problems that he had, regardless, really
Mhm.
apparently derailed him, because he thought it was such a good album, and it depressed him that they managed to pull it off. Apparently,
So this is from Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt, and maybe then we can talk about Wikipedia. Uh,
that's a
the
good
uh,
segue. Good
The
segue. Yeah.
author Ian McDonald writes that when reviewing their rivals' recent work in '66, the Beatles identified the most significant LP as the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, which Brian Wilson, the band's leader, created in response to the Beatles' Rubber Soul. McCartney was
Okay. Okay.
highly
I got you.
impressed with the harmonic structures and choice of instruments used in Pet Sounds, and said that these elements encouraged him to think the Beatles could get further out than the Beach Boys had, and identified Pet Sounds as the main musical inspiration for Sergeant Pepper's, adding that we nicked a few ideas, quote unquote.
Right. But yeah, so if there was a Rubber Soul, Revolver, or whatever it is, Pet Sounds, and then they did Sergeant Pepper, I feel like
Yeah.
Sergeant Pepper is the one that Brian Wilson heard it and he's like, wow, like it depressed him to hear it, apparently. Uh
Mhm.
but I think that he could have been proud of what he did, Brian Wilson, and they could have been proud, and there was room for everybody. But between artists, sometimes you have that kind of rivalry and competition, and you never know how it'll affect them. And when it comes to Wikipedia, I think this started because Elon Musk was talking about Wikipedia is Wikipedia is basically corrupt. He called it. I thought it was funny. He called them Wokepedia.
Yes, there's oh, and somebody did point it out in the chat. Yeah, the dead man says fun fact, Born in the USSR is a play on Surfing USA. Yeah, it is. That's that's part of the gag musically with that song. It's
By the way, I want to thank everybody that stuck around to hear me talk about random Beatles and music stuff.
yeah. A little
But
bit of a musical anthropology lesson
but you
on
know what? You know what? I
Rise to
think
Freeze
that
and
I
Live.
impressed the professor. I think the
Yes.
professor
Oh, yes.
thought that I would just have some nonsense to say, and when I was on a roll, I think the professor said to himself, "Wow, you know what? You know what? Maybe Price
This
knows a few things.
this hoopy frood really knows where his towel is.
In any case, Wikipedia. Let's see. I'm trying to find this article. So I'll
Yeah.
go with this one. This is funny, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
and we're
thank
gonna put it to the test. We're gonna put this to the
Oh,
test
let's
in
do it.
1 second.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to share this
Hey,
now.
I'll say the chat's definitely into the Beatles and and Ringo talk and everything there.
Well, you know what? You know what? I'll tell you this, that basically part of the nice thing about the night owl is, we have our topics that we like to discuss, but if our conversation goes in another direction, we usually embrace that direction. And I think that the feeling is that this is a few friends hanging out and at a kind of late hour and just shooting the breeze, talking
Yeah.
about things that are of interest to them, a lot of stuff that is related to pop culture, but we're not always just sticking. I have no problem. I know people, they have slides and they're very organized, and that's cool. I think that in our case, we just have this almost like a freestyle
Yeah.
type of atmosphere here, which hopefully makes our show unique. I don't
And
know if it's an atmosphere that people enjoy or not. I'm hoping the people listen enjoy it.
yeah, and if we had Robot Head here, he could let us know if any of the Beach Boys ended up dangling from the back of a door or anything like
He
that.
could tell us that for sure. Did this? I'm not able to share this thing. I don't know
Oh no.
why. Oh, that's depressing.
Maybe an X post or something you can find that might let you share it.
Okay, let me see.
That's been happening a number of times lately. Certain websites seem to have maybe it's ads or maybe there's some sort of interactive element or something. But when you try to share it, it just kicks it back and doesn't let you show it. It's weird.
Maybe they're against sharing.
Could be.
This would have been a good.
They don't believe sharing is caring.
Okay, give me 1 second. I think I can
Yeah.
fix this. Tell them some jokes in the meantime,
Jokes.
Professor.
Jokes. Oh no. Oh. No, it's good to see everybody here tonight. Maybe we can start just start recognizing some people in the chat while Price is figuring stuff out. So it's great seeing so many of you here. It's great seeing those of you who are out over there on Rumble. I see Kivo 1961 and Eraserhead, Barbara Lawrence joining us over there on Rumble tonight. Good to see you, Barbara. And yeah, we get just a few people joining us over there on Rumble. But those of you who might be watching, if you haven't yet, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. If you're on Rumble and you're just watching using the app without having an account, it's real easy to sign up. And then you can get that account for free. You can sign up and then you can start liking and following streams so that you can get updates whenever we do go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you're over on YouTube, we would appreciate your like and your subscribe as well. And come back and join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week, where we talk about all sorts of wild and interesting things, sometimes completely unplanned. So who do we have over on YouTube? We have Racerhead is over there as well, and let's see, Backyard TARDIS joined us for a bit. I also saw 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser. He popped in for just a few moments earlier. It's
That was good.
good to see Nick Weiser here. Let's see, Ghost Fixter joining us tonight. Whalem03. Marla Sharondoff, Vex Electronica was here for a bit. We got to be in bed with Vex tonight. Adam Gray.
I'm actually back, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got it. There we
Yeah,
go.
no, I got it. It was a
Yeah.
strange thing, but I hope you have the list of everybody that was here because it disappeared for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've still got it.
Okay. So basically, Elon Musk urges supporters not to donate to Wikipedia after it spent 50 million on DEI Wikipedia. It's true. They show that like out of 50% of what they get as donations, they give to all this kind of weird DEI stuff.
Yep.
And the truth is, normally you think, well, who cares? I just go in there and I find articles. But you know what? I want to show you an article, and this just goes to show you the type of mindset you have at Wikipedia. And you'll find it's not the only case. It's a case that you and I are both are experts on. I feel like it's something that you and I know so much about that I'm about to show you this thing of how it's listed in Wikipedia, and you'll understand exactly what it means when people say that Wikipedia has become infested with activists when it's not giving this kind of objective description of events anymore. I want to show you an example. Are you ready?
Go for it.
Tell some jokes.
It's not working.
No, here, let's do this. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, Star Wars The Last Jedi. We all know the movie. It was the movie that basically ruined the Star Wars franchise. It came out, it did not as well as The Force Awakens in theaters, significantly less, but more than anything, I think that a lot of fans that really were longtime fans didn't like it, didn't like the politics of it, didn't like what they did to Luke Skywalker. They felt it was disrespectful to fans. The movie had a very, very kind of and it was one of the first of its kind on such a high profile movie that was sort of anti-patriarchy, anti-male, quote unquote deconstructing your heroes. Really, this kind of bitter fourth wave feminism, or whatever you want to call it, with a lot of stuff in there. Just all the stuff that we can't stand today, with all these kind of identity politics and things like that. Now, I again, a lot of times people that aren't knowledgeable, they say, "Oh, you just don't like there's diversity in Star Wars," which is so stupid because the original Star Wars had diversity and nobody cared, or even in the prequels, nobody cared about that stuff. If it's a good story, people like it.
Yeah.
I think that in the
And
past,
people freaking loved Lando.
right, exactly.
People loved his character. And it's so silly to be like, "Oh, you're Star Wars fans. You're so, so racist." Like, no, Lando was one of the coolest characters in the original films. People loved him.
Right. I mean, even though I myself think that Rogue One was a very flawed movie, when it came out, people weren't saying anything. It's just whatever. So, and there was a diverse cast there. Nobody
Yeah,
cared.
no one cared.
If something is done in a way that's pleasing to fans, and there's a good story, and it feels like it cares about honoring the lore or the franchise, whatever it is, people generally. And especially before The Last Jedi, I don't think anybody was even thinking about all this stuff. You show them a movie. If it's good, it's good. Uh, but the reason I'm bringing all of this up, let's look today. When you look at Wikipedia, what happens now? It'll write about the movie in general. It'll write the plot, and then it'll write about the cast, and it'll write about the production and developing, the writing, the casting, and the filming. All of this is just kind of run of the mill marketing, theatrical, home media, reception. Blah. Again, the reception. Let's see if it has critical response. This is where you start feeling exactly where those DEI dollars go. Uh, on the one hand, they're very adamant about explaining how great the critics score was, and how great the audience score was, and how great the movie was, and all this stuff, in a way that kind of feels annoying. Of course, they start bringing in here about how bots contributed to the low score, review bombing, and they're using these
Yeah.
type of articles from exactly these activists that wrote it. They're not going to go back and look at people that had a different version of events. They're just going to embrace whoever said that it was bots contributing to low score. Rotten Tomatoes later said that The Last Jedi had been seriously targeted by a review bombing campaign. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It's not review bombing that people see a movie they didn't like and they go and they say they don't like it. Because Force Awakens wasn't. You know what I mean? Why was Force Awakens not review bombed, and then The Last Jedi, quote unquote, was review bombed? And this
Yeah.
idea that Russian people, that the Russian government wanted to say they didn't like The Last Jedi, absolutely ridiculous. You know that until today, these kind of weird theories are still being peddled by people like this. But they're not offering different perspectives here. They're not saying, oh, this, oh, that. They're telling you. They're telling you what it is. It was bots and review bombing, and that's why it didn't get a good score. Then here they wrote reviewers as categorized by reviewers as divisive among audiences, but again, they use all of these kind of especially those exact publications that they want to highlight
Yeah,
about how
Vox. Oh, come on.
yeah, exactly, Vox, people saw it as too progressive, dislike this, blah blah blah. um and But again, reviewers claimed that fan theories were held so strongly among some viewers that it was difficult for them to accept different stories. But they noted that other viewers appreciated the film's action tone and deviation from Star Wars tradition. Nonsense. Most longtime fans thought that movie was crap. Until today, they're still trying to manipulate the narrative to
Yep.
make it seem like that was a movie that was embraced by everybody.
And that, oh, well, it was all because of some harassment campaign
Right,
against Kelly
right.
Marie Tran, and you know, all these awful people said all these awful things. No, uh, how about it was a terrible story that made no sense, deviated all over the place, doing strange and weird things that completely broke the storyline. We're doing a slow speed white Bronco chase in space where starships slow down when they run out of space juice to run on or whatever. That's not how space works. And then completely ignore all of everything else that happens in the Star Wars universe. Like, why couldn't they just use their hyperdrive to jump ahead a little bit and then come back and get them? Like, it's absurd, all of the plot holes in this film. And that's not even mentioning the worst part of it, which was the utterly insulting way that they treated the hero of the original trilogy of the films, the way
The
they
face of
treated
the
Luke
franchise,
Skywalker.
the face of the flippin' franchise, Luke
He's
Skywalker.
humiliated, he's mistreated, he's made out to be this
Evil.
whiny, you know, just deceitful, just runs off and hides, leaves his friends and family to die at the hands of the First Order. It's sickening. And
He's a
that's why
selfish
people hated this movie. Had nothing to do with harassment.
coward. He's a
Yeah.
selfish and bitter coward. That's what they made him.
Yeah.
And by the way, two things. The Dead Man says this has been one of the best. The Night Owls. We really appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say.
Thanks, man.
Really appreciate that's people. We appreciate you guys, and we always love hanging out with you guys. And
Absolutely.
you make this experience great for us. So thank you, The Dead Man. And then if you see, it also says harassment. They opened a tab explaining harassment. And by the way, I see that there's some super chats on YouTube. So I want
Yeah,
to
those just came in. Yeah.
So I want to highlight. Can we see them in the? Do we see them?
Let's see.
It's,
So, Istophobos, are you able to?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. Wikipedia's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
They're just terrible. And thank you for the super chats.
Yeah.
Istophobos.
You didn't have to send a second super chat for
Right.
extra text, but we got it. Thank you.
We got
Thank
it.
you.
We got it. But thank you very much, and we appreciate your support, and we appreciate you being here. And again, the compliment from the Dead Man, also very nice of you. So, Istophobos says, if you think that's bad, look up anything political on Wikipedia. Yeah, but the thing is that, that of course is going to have its own nonsense and annoying thing. But the fact that even a movie, that this is easy stuff, that they can't even describe what happened with this movie properly because they want to push an agenda. To me, that's in a way that's even worse than talking about politics. Because politics, you can say, well, they're all this kind of people, so that's how they're going to present their politics. That's bad. But the fact that a movie and its lack of success is, or relative lack of success, is misrepresented this way, I think it's somehow even more shameful. Because it's such a trivial thing. Just let people talk about the movie for real. And to add this additional segment of harassment, I just want to read it. The casting of Asian American actress Kelly Marie Tran as Rose Tico spurred both a racial and misogynistic backlash against the film, including sexistophobic commentary about both Tran and her character. This is absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
completely made up.
This isn't. This is just a lie. This isn't. Now, okay, when you have a movie that at that time I would say it could be that like 100 million people all over the world watched it. Okay, out of 100 million people, if you told me that there was like, let's say, 0.001% of the people that they had Twitter accounts and they went and they wrote shitty posts about her, sure, I could believe that. But when you're an actor or actress getting paid millions of dollars and you're in a high profile movie like that, there will always be a few weirdos that pop up. I know, and I think the professor can say this as well, and a lot of you could say this. As we are very much into Star Wars, we're very much into fandoms, and we're all sort of in these communities where we take things apart and talk about them, and even sometimes we don't agree with each other, and we have these type of conversations. I really, really don't remember, and it's stronger than don't remember. I was not involved, and not the people that we run into all these conversations of if she was Asian or not. Nobody cared about that, the fact that she was Asian. I
Nope.
think that the only idea here was her character contributing anything to the story? And the truth is this. This is the truth, in my opinion. This is the part that I think is misrepresented by all the media. This was a character that was not initially introduced. In the first movie, they didn't introduce her. The truth is, and I know this may sound bad to some people or not. After the first movie, it turned out that Force Awakens made a lot of money everywhere, but it wasn't so big in China, and it wasn't in general as big in Asia as they wanted. Do you remember that, Professor?
Oh yeah.
So basically, what happened, and I assume that has to do with Kathleen Kennedy and her minions or whatever it is, even if it's Iger, whoever it is involved in this decision making, I think that they just got up one day and they said, okay, let's add a fourth character to the three that we introduced. Let's make sure that that's an Asian character and that character will now speak to those audiences. Now, I don't have an issue with casting an Asian woman in a Star Wars. In fact, this idea that men don't like Asian women is one of the dumbest I've ever heard. Most men, whoever they are, women who are from Asia and ones that are pleasant, I think that men generally like Asian women. At least men that I know. I don't know what maybe some men, as a matter of principle, doesn't like that, but most men that I know think that Asian women, especially ones that are pleasant, have no issue with that. So, if they wanted to introduce a character and you ask me how to do it, they should have gone the route of like a Lando Calrissian. Now, Lando Calrissian, to be fair, there was a script already with the character. They happened to cast a guy that was diverse. This is an opposite type of situation. They didn't have a screenplay that needed this character. They had a character that needed to be injected into a screenplay.
Yep.
Are you with me, Professor?
Oh yeah, I'm 100%.
So then what they did was, how do they inject her in there? So they said, well, let's take Finn. Now, Finn in the first movie, in my opinion, is the only really heroic figure. He is the only guy that sort of steps up and does something, and he makes an effort at least, and he tries to go toe to toe with a guy that has a lot more powers and can easily get rid of him, but he still was willing to stand up. He's a guy that runs away at the beginning. At the end, he's face to face with a bad guy. I like that idea, and I was curious to see where they take it. I was expecting that character become even more heroic. Instead, what do you get? You start off, he's like this simp. Where's Ray? Where's Ray? He wants to run away. He's a coward again for some reason. And then he runs away. They attach Rose Tico to him for the whole movie to some stupid side quest, ruining his character in the process just so they can introduce her character. And that, in my opinion, was bad for her and it was bad for him. Not because she's Asian, not because he's black, none of that. It's because it wasn't good for the characters and it wasn't good for the story. Not to mention that even outside these two characters, that screenplay by Rian Johnson was a piece of crap. It was a piece of crap screenplay written by an overrated hack that too many people around him have told him that he's some great auteur, when in fact, at best, he can be a gun for hire that directs something if everybody supervises him, writes the material, and tells him what to do. That's probably the best that he can do. So,
Yeah.
so again, and then here, what do we see in Wikipedia? Casting of this and this, blah, blah, istophobia. Tran was accused of representing forced diversity imposed by social justice warriors because of her race. Again, it's not a matter of forced diversity. They could have done something else. They could have started off that movie, had Finn, team up with Poe or something. They're going on a real mission, something to do something that actually matters, not some crap. Rey is training, doing actual training with Luke Skywalker. They're both going on an actual adventure that they're trying to do something that actually has value, not these side quests or some shit that nobody cares about. Maybe along the way, instead of that Benicio del Toro character that nobody even remembers was in the movie with his that they happened to find a different hacker than the hacker they were looking for, maybe they do something that they're on a mission and along the way they go to a planet or something and they meet her and she's a hacker. Do something that feels more organic to the story. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm thinking of Guardians of the Galaxy and maybe Mantis. I don't know if that's a good example, but you get what I'm trying to say? Uh,
No,
some
absolutely.
something that real things are happening that are organic to the story, and then quietly in kind of a clever way, in a part that needs it, introduce a character. Now, even though Lando was cast after they wrote the screenplay, the introduction of his character makes sense. They're on the run. They need to go somewhere, and they find this planet. And he says, "I think I know this guy. I don't know if I can trust him." And they bring out Lando. It's the perfect way to introduce his character. It's not 1 minute after the credits.
Nope. Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Well,
They
and
do
yeah, it comes around. The introduction of the character is organic to the story,
right,
and they don't feel like they just sort of got dropped into into the group and everything. And in fact, initially, he's not part of the group. He's not immediately just like, "Hey, let's partner up and go do our thing." Like he shows up, he's a bad guy. He
right.
betrays them and he turns them over to the Empire, to Vader, and then you kind of, as his story unfolds, you find out, well, maybe he's not so bad. He was responsible for all these people, and he had to make
A
decisions to
tough
try and
decision, yeah.
a tough decision to try and keep people safe. And he was told one thing by Vader at one point, and then something else. Nobody's going to be harmed, nobody's going to be hurt. If you don't go along with what we're going to do, we're going to tear your place up and take it over and whatever. So he was in a bad spot. He was cornered, and he had to do something. And so you realize over time, oh, well, yeah, maybe he is kind of a scoundrel, like Han, but he's trying to do the best he can in the situation that he's in. And so his character evolves and changes even throughout that first film that he's in. She's just sort of dumped in here, and I think, genuinely, I think her character takes away from the film. It does not add a thing.
No, and it takes away from Finn because
It
they
does,
said,
big time.
"Well, why don't we team them both together so we find something for her to do?" But once they did that, they derailed his character arc that they started in the first movie. So basically, a character that was being built up as a hero becomes some kind of strange side quest comic relief that nobody cares about in the course of one movie for no reason at all. And again, I don't like all this, forced diversity, social. This is all nonsense and it's irrelevant. They didn't introduce her character organically. That would be the main comment. And the other thing is, if you ever saw her on the red carpet, she is a cute Asian girl. Now, if you put her in the movie and you would have had her like she looks in the red carpet, kind of in that direction, looking in the movie, I think that people would have also warmed up to her more. Instead, what they did was they were quote unquote trying to battle the male gaze, which I don't see in this stupid Wikipedia page, which in order
Mhm.
to battle the male gaze, they put on some weird hair on her to make her look weird, and they put a potato sack over her so
Yeah.
that
Oh,
she'll look
jeez.
even weirder.
That
And
wig is doing nobody any
nobody
favors.
any
It's
favors.
horrible.
It's horrible, along with those clothes that they put on her. It's
Yeah.
like usually what used to happen in the movies is that you had a woman that maybe in reality looks okay, and then a movie they kind of boosted it and make her look even better, even more glamorous, and maybe even looks nicer. The best she can look, they bring to you on screen. This is sort of movie ushered in an era where they take women that actually look okay, but they're going to go through great lengths to make them look not okay. So this is something that none of these publications want to talk about because they don't want to talk about how all the weird, extreme anti-male agendas going on there, and Kathleen Kennedy with all of her nonsense and her people. They don't want to mention any of that. So this is the easy thing. Oh, forced diversity, social justice. Blah, blah. After facing extensive, and they wrote, after facing extensive harassment over her ethnicity and appearance, Tran quit social media. Tran initially always said that she didn't like social media. She actually started being more active because of the movie. She didn't like social media. When she quit it, she didn't make an announcement. She didn't say, listen, I've had enough of people talking to me this way. I'm leaving. She said nothing. Lucasfilm, that were looking to stop the bleeding, quote unquote, with them losing, like not making the money they wanted and the bad press, and especially online and conversations that they were getting, they decided to jump on this, to piggyback on her. She didn't even shut down her account. She just deleted some posts. And they're like, no, she's gone, and she's gone because of you. And everybody jumped in. Mark Hamill, the deranged lunatic, Ryan Johnson, everybody jumped into this stupid narrative. And then, which was 100% bogus. And then the New York Times published an article where she basically said things that she said in the past before this ever happened. It was sort of a regurgitation of something that she'd said prior, like a few years earlier. And her main criticism there was against actually the media, not the fans. So all of this was a bunch of crap. And then the worst part is, I don't know if you remember, the New York Times then, their editor created a headline that she didn't write, meaning she's like, they basically reframed the article as like she's battling the istophobes that didn't like the Star Wars thing that chased her away, but she didn't write that headline, the editor did. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And then finally, what does it say? The incident highlighted the challenges faced by people of color who are in Star Wars. Tran was the first woman of color to have a lead role in Star Wars film. And similarly, John Boyega faced the same type of abuse when he was cast in The Force Awakens. Again, bullshit. I understand that there were some people that said something about the stormtrooper, and maybe there were some people that said something. Whether there's a few reasons, some of them could be legitimate when it comes to canon, some of them because they're just maybe jerks. That didn't really represent the majority of the people. I was in the theater I saw The Force Awakens. John Boyega went to theaters when this thing premiered. People were like cheering and clapping for him. The feeling when I was in the theater watching the movie is that everybody liked his character. I did not feel a wave of anti John Boyega. The
No,
opposite is what I felt.
no.
I don't know where this is coming from. It doesn't represent reality, in my opinion.
I think these are people who are going to reach for the most fringe opinions they can find and try to amplify them so they can use those against people to push their own messaging. So yeah, I have no doubt there were some whack jobs out there on Twitter at the time, or other social media, that were saying nasty, hateful things about John Boyega. There were people, oh, there's a black stormtrooper. How why would you do that? It's like, okay, first of all, these aren't still clone troopers. That happened a long time ago. And guess what? Those clone troopers weren't necessarily white. Um, we'll get into that. But this is in the future. They've been recruiting people, various different things. Not all stormtroopers are white. I don't know who thought that was the case. I certainly didn't. That was extremely weird. But yeah, they would glom on to these really fringe, crazy opinions, and then pretend that they were something that was held by this huge number of people in the community. Same with the stuff over Kelly Marie Tran. I am certain there were some weirdos who were saying nasty things to her and whatever. But you know what? There's always weirdos. There's always sexist. There's always racist people who are out there saying horrible things. That is always going to exist on the internet. It's always going to exist on social media. But because there's a few bad apples, that does not ruin the bunch, right? In this case, there's a few crazy people, but they are not representing the core of the community. I think in general, most people, even those people who were not fans of the sequels, and in fact, I had to have this discussion with my sister this week, as she was talking about wanting to, this thing and that thing in the sequels, and I should go to Disney World and go on the some of the Rise of the Resistance ride or something. I'm like, I don't think you understand. I hate these 3 films. I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want anything to do with the Resistance. I don't want anything to do with Rey. I don't want anything to do with anything in that timeline. They're awful and I hate them. And but I think even people like me who just loathe those sequels will tell you that John Boyega was treated badly by the writers and by Disney in creating these films. His character should have been a central hero in the story. He should have been a Jedi. He should have been training and had a much more central part instead of being made the butt of jokes for the last 2 movies.
Absolutely. And I was trying to find something. I don't know if I can find this thing that I wanted to show you. Hopefully it's still here. Give me a second.
But yeah, this it's so frustrating. Yeah, it's coming back to the subject and talking about Wikipedia. Yeah, the people who are in charge of maintaining on various different topics on Wikipedia are more or less hand chosen for having more liberal viewpoints on things, more progressive viewpoints on things, I should say, not classically liberal, more progressive viewpoints on things. There's a number of other subjects. It's why I don't give to, I don't give money to Wikipedia. There's a number of other subjects where very specifically they have promoted people to, editors to manage certain subjects to ensure that certain data, certain information is never included as part of those articles. If you go and look at anything that has to do with climate science, you will not find any significant contributions in there that have anything to do with people who have a contradictory view of climate science beyond what is claimed to be settled science, right? You will not see stuff in there, significant contributions in there from people who offer other conflicting theories about how the climate is changing or why the climate is changing or anything. The only thing that is allowed there by the people that are editors in those areas are people who say, nope, it's exactly what we've always said. People are the cause, and it's CO2 and it's greenhouse gases, and we're destroying the planet, and we've got 12 years to live. That's the only opinions that are allowed there.
Right. And by the way, Istophobos is saying, and this ties to what you're saying, they always do this. They attribute the fringe opinions to anyone that doesn't agree with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
If you're not 100% on board saying that their thing is the greatest thing ever, they'll take any fringe opinion and then apply that to you. So if you say, well, no, it wasn't a good movie. Well, you have to agree with the racist thing because the racist said it's not a good movie. So that by the transitive property means that you also are a racist, even just because you don't think it's a good movie. And they've been doing that for ages.
so, if you notice here, one of the things that they were blabbing about, they wrote Scott Mendelson of Forbes, and they were talking about how it's a vocal minority of people and blah blah blah. Now, the thing is that Scott Mendelson of Forbes, we know very well who that guy is. He's not at Forbes anymore. I know personally because he's blocked me on Twitter after just once I criticized him on something, or maybe many times I criticized him, but he ended up, I guess, seeing something and blocking me. And I guess what I'm saying is these guys are so not trustworthy. To even state Scott Mendelson and pretend that he is a legitimate source for any information on this, that's like kind of like that Paul Tassi guy. You know what I mean? Like you have an issue and you're sort
Yep.
of quoting him. You're not getting this isn't a guy with this is just my opinion, of course. I do question his integrity and the motives he has for writing the articles he writes. Certainly doesn't feel real to me. Most of the time when I see these articles, they would feel like he needed to toe some kind of push some kind of agenda, which is why he would write them. That would be my opinion. In any case, it fits with what you were saying. It fits with what Istophobos was saying. And then the other thing that I wanted to do is that just to show you that along exactly when all this stuff was happening. I don't know why, but that's probably a good kind of to end everything, to show you the hypocrisy. I think you'll know what I mean. Let me see if I can show this to you. So at that same time, when everything that came out, you had this thing, Stephen Colbert on his show. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Stephen Colbert, for me, when you see him and he's weighing in on a subject like this and towing the same propaganda, usually not a good sign. When Stephen Colbert has entered the chat of this type of discussion, really not a good sign. But let's see what he says. Can you hear him?
Yeah.
There's some troubling news from a long.
You could hear it?
Yes.
Okay.
So funny.
You know, when you
Yeah.
see that, you know that you're on to something.
Just God. Yeah.
And by the way, Tim Hayes says, yeah, and they made her look ugly as by putting that stupid wig on her. You know what? Stephen Colbert, anytime he weighs in, I can't take it seriously. But what's even, and this is the final anecdote, a few months later, Lucasfilm did some big event or convention or something like this, and they needed, I don't remember which one of their annual things it was, they needed a host for their event to be the MC and the host of their event. Do you know who their host was?
Could it be Stephen Colbert?
I can't believe you got this right. It happened to be Stephen
Wow.
Colbert. Almost as if somebody scratched somebody's back and then they scratched his back.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting how these things work. And yeah, I guess and also, even if you notice in that stupid clip of his, it isn't lost on me that you see like a group of quote unquote nerds who are all the same ethnicity sitting there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And
But
honestly, they keep saying she's was the main character. I didn't feel like she was a main character.
no, I mean, and that's really part of the issue. They wanted, and this all goes back to the stupid thing with Asia and the Asian market. They thought that they would inject her into the thing immediately. Not that somebody would organically halfway through the movie introduce like a new character. She needed to be there from the first second so they can say to Asian audiences, "Look, there's an Asian person here." But the thing is that you can't just do that mid trilogy. Now, if they had a story that requires 4 different type of characters and one of them is Asian from day one with a trilogy they had actually planned and not just flying by their seat of their J.J. Abrams pants, if they had an actual trilogy to work with a real plan behind it, they could have maybe worked this out. But they didn't. So they're like, oh, let's just shove her in here now. And that just goes to show you how little they understand about storytelling, how little any of this even matters to them. The fact that they wouldn't even think to themselves, wait, it doesn't even make sense that we just suddenly bring her in here because, it's a trilogy. Like, it's supposed to continue the story. How is suddenly there's another character here? Just it does feel forced from a storytelling perspective, not because of her ethnicity. Even if she was white, okay? I'll use another explanation. If she was white and had blonde hair, and she did the same character from the beginning of the movie, she introduced in the same way, I would have the same criticism. Especially if you put her like a weird wig on her, in addition to it, and the potato sack, in addition to all the other issues, have the same exact issues.
Yep.
It's not
Yep.
because the Asian thing, and honestly,
It would have been an awful character no matter what race or
no
even
matter
what
what.
gender the character might
No
have
matter
been.
what, it would have been a terrible character because it's a terribly written screenplay.
The character, yeah, the character leads them off on a stupid, pointless mission to a gambling planet where they let some stupid race horses out that run around the planet, and then they accomplish absolutely nothing, and they're like, oh, but it felt so good, and then they fly back to the ship that's still running away at slow speed from the other star destroyers. This is so
It's
dumb.
ridiculous. Such a dumb movie.
And then she rescues Finn, or yeah, from being a hero.
from being a
for
hero.
making a heroic sacrifice and delivers one of the dumbest lines ever.
I wanted to save what we love, not love what we hate.
Whatever.
Whatever.
Ah.
Istafova says, notice that none of the Wokies bring up BLM anymore now that they've been completely discredited. Didn't even report on the discrediting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. But at the time that they made that video, I guess they were still they weren't discredited yet at that point.
Yep. Someone did bring up that recently Kelly Marie Tran has come out as I'd have to look it up, non-binary or whatever. Yeah, so as I was saying, yeah, all that means nothing. All that means is she was having trouble getting work, and her agent needed her to be more intersectional so she could get her more roles.
Joshua Calkins says the worst character in Star Wars in Star Wars movie. Remind me why I should give a shit. There really isn't a reason for you to give a shit, but we were just showing the example of how in Wikipedia they continue to tell these dumb stories. Oh yeah, Haldo was also terrible, and hey Mars Monkey Masks, how's this going?
Hey.
And yeah, I think that we've covered a wide array of issues.
Yeah.
I didn't think that I'd be talking about the fact that the road manager of the Beatles slept with the mother of the former drummer of the Beatles. I don't think the Professor R2 had that on his bingo card either.
that was nowhere on my list of discussion topics this evening, but we had a good time with it, so what the hell, right?
Yep. In any case, I guess maybe it's time to
give a few shout outs.
the shout outs. You can do this better than me because I only have later on.
Yeah, well, so do I because my my browser reset. So I have what I can see on Rumble and on YouTube. So yeah, we did see Tim Hayes shouted out Kivo 1961 earlier. Again, thanks for joining us. See Joshua Culkins. So I can get this scrolled up here. Is Phobos the Dead Man? And thank you again, is Phobos, for those super chats. Didn't see any other new ones pop in. So, the Dead Man, Adam Gray, I think shouted out earlier. Let's say Tim Hayes again. Oh, I was on joining us on multiple platforms. Tim Hayes, thanks. We have Stephen Mack. Thanks for joining us. Eraserhead, again, also joining us on both platforms there. Let's see. Kelly Hans, thanks for joining us. Hey, says Kelly. Gosh, yeah, I know we're gonna miss some early on because we both had our, our browsers reset on us. Looking for a few other names here. Yeah, we saw Mars Monkey Max popped in just a few minutes ago. We had looking for other names here, but I'm not finding anybody else. Hey, if we missed you in the shout outs, we're awfully sorry, but we're glad that you're here. Price is not. He's walked away.
Oh, I'm very glad.
He's taking a nap.
No, I'm very glad as well. No, I was just
Price
giving
is
you.
dozed off.
I haven't dozed off. You were just doing your thing, and I didn't want to interrupt.
No, but thanks everybody for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Glad we had a fun, spirited conversation about the Beatles. Wasn't expecting that tonight, and about various other members of Genesis and who was the better leader of the band. I will say I like Phil Collins, but I do love Peter Gabriel. He had some amazing work both with Genesis and then as an independent artist. Love Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, Peter Gabriel is pretty cool. He has a Sledgehammer
Yeah.
song that to this day I kind of like.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Had a cool video too.
Yeah. Yeah. Had some really interesting music videos back in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one is
very,
kind of
very
like
creative.
that one was almost like a not almost, it was like a groundbreaking video.
Yeah.
You know that it was really, really difficult to film that sledgehammer video, and it's not like today with computers that you could do a bunch of stuff. That was a lot of stop motion animation
Yeah, it was.
to plan and execute that. He had to be there for a very long time. This was not something that just like, in 5 seconds they filmed that video. That was a lot of work. That video was a big deal on, the eve of it coming out. It was probably one of the most elaborate videos ever made until that moment.
Yeah, it's a real classic. If you've never seen that, I don't we've got a
E
lot of older people here in the
Everything
chat,
is
but if you've never seen the Sledgehammer music video, it's something fascinating to watch.
totally, and
Yeah.
it's, a lot of stop motion animation,
Mhm.
stuff that you don't see today. Really, today they would just do a computer. I like the days that they put in the kind of thought and effort like we see there. There's still without all the computers that could do everything so great, there's something a bit magical when you look at how they did that one.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I digress. Go on. Sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, that was pretty much all I was gonna say. Yeah, just yeah, yeah, fantastic artist. And but yeah, as far as Genesis, yeah, I enjoyed but Peter Gabriel's time there as well as Phil Collins. They had a lot of great music, and I enjoy both of them as artists. So yeah. All right. Anything else, Price?
No, I think
No?
we've covered a wide array of issues today, and it was quite a conversation.
All sorts of things. Yep.
All sorts of things. Again, Istafobos, thanks for the super chats,
Yes.
and I hope you all are continuing to have a great sort of holiday weekend. I don't really know what to call it, but hope you all have a great night
Yep.
as well, and great weekend. And we'll
And
see
then
you all here next week
yeah, we'll
on
see you next
Tuesday.
week too. Tuesday night, we're gonna ring in the new year together here, Price. On Tuesday
Is
night.
that the
That's the night.
that's the night? Hey, you know what? I'm gonna be here. I can't tell
Yeah.
other people what to do, but I will be here.
Well, we can ring in the new year twice. We can both Eastern and Central time zone together.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
All righty. Well, thanks for being here, everyone. Have a great night.
good night. Bye.